Welcome to Midwest Paranormal Presents Paranormal Soup. I'm your host, Jason Bland, and tonight we have guest Tom Reilly. He is the author, he's a historian, he's the author of The Protector, The Fall and Rise of Oliver Cromwell. Now, some of you are like, I'm not a history buff, I'm not into this. We're talking about Ireland here. And Oliver Cromwell has some interesting history alone, but our author tonight, Tom Reilly, lives in a castle himself in Ireland, and I, myself, have Irish heritage. I know many people do, but I had a great-grandfather that immigrated from Ireland to be a miner here. I don't know a lot about my family history on that side. I've always wanted to know more. I've had, people listen on their show. I've had what I think is my Banshee experience. I related to my Irish heritage, and I'm always interested. One of the dream places I want to go is Ireland. I want to travel to Ireland one day and visit an Irish haunted castle, or more than one, because they got like lots. Like Leap Castle would be number one on the list probably. This man, Tom Reilly, lives in one. We're going to hear some ghost stories tonight and some history. I love both. I think ghost stories are great, but the history with it makes it even more rich and incredible. And we will take your phone calls later in the show. Got a lot to get to in the World Wide Web of Weird, so let's go ahead and get rolling on into it. Welcome to another night of Paranormal Soup. As I said before, I'm your host, Jason Bland. Tonight, we don't have Jamie. She's hoping to be back tomorrow. She had to, I think, take her mom to the airport tonight. But Rob is running late from a gig, so I'm all about my lonesome. Not really, though. I have you great, wonderful people in the chat room. Hello, Wolfie, Anthony there, I see. Royal, awesome people. Love you guys. Thank you for being in the chat room. You're my co-host tonight. Well, Rob might be joining us soon. He's trying to get here as quick as he can. That means I have to run the World Wide Web of Weird by myself. Our guest tonight, Tom Reilly, as I said before, he's the author of The Protector, The Fall and Rise of Oliver Cromwell. And some of you are like, I'm not really into history, man. I like history. And Oliver Cromwell, I'm not a huge knowledgeable person on the history, but Oliver Cromwell I am familiar with, The Protector. The Puritan, that led England for a short period of time, when they kind of kicked Charles I or decapitated Charles I, and he got to rule England. But there's interesting history, and for an Irish author like Tom Reilly to write a book trying to revisit the history, it's a fictional book, of Oliver Cromwell is interesting since he's kind of seen as the butcher or a Hitler-like figure in Ireland. Oliver Cromwell's history is notoriously bad. So I find that interesting that he's got an Irish defender, and there's a lot more to it. And like I said, Haunted Castles of Ireland, that's like my dream. When Gavin Lee Davies is a friend of mine he's been on the show, and he's a publicist, got me a connection with this author. I jumped on it. Maybe it's not going to all be paranormal tonight, but he does have some good ghost stories. But I jumped on it because of my Irish heritage and my interest in Ireland altogether. Like, if there's one place I could fly across the pond and see, number one on my list is Ireland. So this is a little selfish of me. I hope you guys do enjoy. If you have Irish heritage, you should listen tonight. We'll get into that. And Oliver Cromwell, was he wronged by history? We'll find that out from our guest, Tom Reilly. But we got a lot of weird to get to, so let's go ahead and roll into the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight on the World Wide Web of Weird, I thought I'd start off with some Bigfoot stuff. We had a great show last week with guests Ronald Meyer and Mark Reeder. Their book, The Bigfoot Alien Connection Revisited. I loved being able to talk about Bigfoot and aliens last week. It was so much fun. So I thought I'd start off with a Bigfoot story here. This one is Bigfoot sighting spark new. Oh, hold on. I lost the article already. I don't even have the article up here for you guys to see. Spate of Bigfoot sightings sparks new theory that mythical beasts could be real. For those listening on the Paranormal Soup radio network, we are a webcast. We do stream out live to Facebook, YouTube, and even Twitch. So if you want to watch, please feel free. Or if you just want to listen, I'll try to narrate as best as possible. Speaking of the watch, I don't even have my share screen up. I'm so spoiled by Rob. That's not what I want. Hold on. I am share screen. I am so off my game now. Share screen. There we go. All right, we want to do that. Yes. Okay. And then I don't even have my file ready. Hold on a second, guys. Bear with me. I'm used to having Rob. He's trying. He's got a lot of gigs in the summer that he plays. So, yes, this first one, this is mainly talking about this photo that's been going around. But this whole article from the Mirror is Spate of Bigfoot sighting sparks new theory that mythical beast could be real. A photograph of a mysterious figure has caused a farm manager to quit his job after numerous supposed Bigfoot sightings in the area, while animals on the farm had been going missing. Another Bigfoot sighting has been made just days after video footage of an unidentified mammal was seen in the same area, sparking more theories the beast could be real. Donnie Hicks, who owns a farm in Tennessee, USA, where a spate of Bigfoot sightings have recently been made, including a half-man, half-dog creature that was caught on camera. So we got Dogman and Bigfoot. Remember last week we were talking about these things may not be just creatures that we haven't discovered living in our woods, but something more, something from another dimension. I definitely have always thought that about Dogman, But when you have Dogman and Bigfoot sightings, that really lends credence to the fact that we might be dealing with parallel universes or something here intertwining with ours. This article goes on here from the Mirror. He was unnerved recently when he noticed that animals were going missing from the farm, and he couldn't explain what happened to them, but then he saw the creature. He has no idea what it is, but he's scared for his life, as one witness called it El Diablo Yeti. And now he's shared a picture of the beast with a Bigfoot theorist in hopes of identifying the huge bipedal animal. And this is the picture we have up here from the Daily Mirror. It's hard to tell from a distance, but the animal looks huge. I don't know what that is. I really couldn't tell you what that is. Let's just do a zoom in here, my horrible zoom in, but let me move this down. I don't know. I can't see your guys' comments yet in the thing because I have to do the share screen here. You don't see legs. I mean, like, they say it's tall because of how fensible. You don't see anything below. Like, I see like an arm and a head, but I don't. I would think you'd see something else here in the below the fence. It's weird. Maybe it's transdimensional, or maybe it's just something hanging on the fence, and this is a very horribly distorted picture. Talking to Facebook, Donnie wrote, I am new here, but something is going on in the middle of Tennessee with several alleged and rumored sightings of Bigfoot. Is this what I think it is, or could it be it? It's not my photo, but from a farm hand that had sent it to me since all of my chickens are missing. I don't know what to do or think here. He added in the comments, I truly don't know, but I'm remounting my game cameras in new pasture locations. My farm manager is completely freaked by El Diablo Yeti, his words. Donnie went on to say in another comment that the farm manager told him, I can no longer work on your farm. The image is blurry, but appears to show what looks like a figure standing behind a fence in one of Donnie's fields. It's difficult to gauge how large the figure is, but it does seem taller than the fence in the image. But the problem I have is why don't I see anything below the fence? I don't know. I mean, it looks like a torso, head, long arm, maybe, kind of. I don't know. It's as distorted as possible. But moving on, let's move on. And I gotta turn this on here. Hold on a second. And excuse me, frog in my throat tonight too, just to make things more lovely. And my articles on my tablet are not coming up, so give me 1 second. Bear with me. All right, here we go. Next article is woman records eerie Bigfoot howls in Ohio, and I love Bigfoot howls all the way back to Art Bell's days when he'd have these great people sending recordings, or researchers or guests have Bigfoot howls and recording sounds, and there's a classic one he would always love to play for people. So I love a good Bigfoot howl. Couldn't tell you if it's Bigfoot or not, but I would be creeped out by many of these I've heard over the years. In the middle of the woods and I hear this kind of noise, I'd be creeped out. I don't know what's what in the woods noise-wise. I am not Survivor Man. You know, so I don't know what anything making noise in the woods. I'm probably going to be creeped out. Be like, talk him in, Bigfoot, lion. I don't know. But this one, woman in Ohio, Loudonville resident Suzanne Freckneck, if I said that right, believes she has captured audio evidence of an elusive creature, having developed a keen interest in the phenomenon after a close encounter with an alleged Bigfoot in 2013. Freckneck recorded the mysterious howling on July 3rd outside a Mohican State Park. While park officials dismiss the sound as that of coyotes, Freckneck, I thought I say it right, remains unconvinced. You hear some howls, then you hear a chorus of coyotes, then you hear the howls again, she said. She was so convinced about the nature of the recording, in fact, that she sent it along to an anonymous audio specialist known for his work for assessing alleged Bigfoot audio. I do hear a responder after the third howl that suggests a second Sasquatch in the area and not a coyote, he said. That responder makes a low, flat howl that ends with a whoop. You remember they make that? You ever hear the Finding Bigfoot shows or whatever? They're like whoop in the woods or stuff like that. But that is the noise that people say that they make. I don't know. Then the coyotes chorus kicks in. You can check out the recording for yourself. Let's go ahead and take a meander, listen to this. I'm guessing those are the coyotes, but it's the other noise in the background? That. Or is that the coyotes? See, I don't know the difference between coyote and Bigfoot. I don't know. Definitely nothing like the old Art Bell Bigfoot howl. But like I said, I wouldn't know if I heard noises in the woods. I would love to be the guy that would be like, yes, that is Sasquatch you hear. I'd love to be able to distinguish, but I wouldn't know Sasquatch from my ass. I really wouldn't know Sasquatch from my coyote. I am not a wilderness man. So more power to her and the other people investigating it. All right, let's move on. We talked about Bigfoot and aliens last week, so let's move on to some aliens. And my favorite place for alien sightings, I don't know what reason it is that interests me with this, is just some of the great stories that have come out of Brazil. But there's something about Brazil and aliens. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the 1970s Brazilian alien attack where it attacked people with laser beams. And go look it up. I mean, there was a whole thing that happened in I think it was the 70s in Brazil where people were attacked by UFOs. I mean, like literally craziness of alien encounters in Brazil is amazing. This one I got from Coast to Coast, Tim Binnell. Witnesses in Brazil were left scratching their head when they stepped onto their balcony of their apartment and spotted a puzzling white disc hovering in the sky. The peculiar UFO sighting reportedly occurred last month in the coastal city of is that Maceo? I got that right? Probably butchered that. According to the named witness, I've seen many planes passing by, and I can say that this object is not a mere plane. I can agree with it. To that end, the unidentified aerial anomaly seen in this footage somewhat resembles a classic flying saucer as it sports a disc shape and what appears to be a pointed top. It does. Excuse me. Since the footage largely just shows the anomaly in the sky without anything else nearby to gauge its size or distance, deciphering what the object could be is something of a challenge. That said, setting aside the possibility the oddity is an alien craft cruising along the coast of Brazil, some skeptical observers have suggested that the UFO could be an errant balloon or perhaps a drone. Now we got drones. Let's always keep blaming on that, right? With that in mind, whatever your best guess for the witness film flying over their apartment. Let's just take a look at the UFO beam footage here. It's going to be hard to see. I know it's not the best because this is, of course, recorded on a cell phone. Here's a little zoom in of it, but it is like a total like top hat UFO. It does suck that there is nothing to gauge distance by or size of this thing, but it is not a plane. And if it's a drone, it's a very odd one. I try to get some zoom-ins of it, but it's pretty hard to do. But it is an interesting shape. I would definitely record it if I stepped on my balcony and saw that. I don't have a balcony. I don't live in Brazil, but here's my best zoom in I could do of it. I don't see how that could be a balloon. Maybe a drone, but I doubt it. But it looks very UFO-ish, and it's got the top hat kind of thing. It's like that classic, almost 1950s kind of UFO. I don't know, but it's Brazil. I had to cover it. I don't know what it is about Brazil. Okay, let's move on. Don't want to move on too fast, though. So used to having the banter between me and Rob and Jamie. So I'm going to go too fast, I think. All right. Next up, and from I don't know. We've talked about it before. The UFO lore is. You ever heard of the Betts family? What was it? Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Metal ball they found. It was 1974, and it crash landed in Florida. I forgot what part of Florida, but it was the Betts family, and they got this weird ball that would like roll around, and you would, it would do weird things. It had weird. It's just weird. The whole thing was weird, and then eventually the family shut up about it, but. Nobody could explain how this weird ball crashed near their house, I guess, or their property. It had a fire going, and it would like follow them around the house. It's an odd story. But recently, I saw this is circulating on the web, and it reminds me of it. This was in Mexico this time. Mysterious sphere falls from the sky over Mexico. Now, is it space junk or alien? Right? That's what everybody's question is. The unidentified object reportedly landed in a tree falling from the heavens over Veracruz on July 31st. Yesterday, it was reported that a large piece of space junk had landed in the field in Australia. Now it turns out that something else had descended from the sky over the weekend, a solid sphere that fell over Mexico and that has since been generating quite a lot of discussion debate on social media. TV meteorologist Isidro Cano Luna has been leading efforts to get the bottom of the mystery. According to his Facebook post, the object is made of either metal or hard plastic and appears yellowish in color with what appears to be some sort of antenna sticking out of the top, which you can totally see right here. Despite the intriguing surrounding, however, many social media users have quick to dismiss it as little more than a piece of space junk from a defunct satellite or spacecraft. Spacecraft team at the Secretary of Navy of Mexico and the Secretary of National Defense needs to collect it and turn it over for special study, Isidro wrote. He also warned locals not to touch it in case it turns out to be radioactive. The original post photographs can view below. I got one of the photographs up here from Unexplained Mysteries. I don't know. I mean, I know we can zoom in on this. Let me see. I am not, wouldn't have no idea, just like a coyote howl to a Bigfoot howl, what this is, but, it doesn't look like it's like been burnt or crashed or it's well preserved, just landed in the tree. You would think it would take out the tree if it was falling from space. It wouldn't just land on top of the branch like that. The whole thing's odd. Space junk is happening. I mean, there's a lot of it falling up there, but, you think it's going to make some kind of, I don't know, more of a crater or, I don't know. It would not just sit in a tree. That's what I thought was odd about this story. And you'd think somebody would be claiming it. I mean, it could be really old, too. Who knows? It could be Sputnik old. I don't know. But, it reminded me of the Betts story. Whenever like a sphere that falls, that's one of those classic UFO lore stories. It's not lore. I mean, it's a real thing. This Betts family existed, and it was covered by newspapers and interviewed for years, and I think they got tired of it. But it's a great, great piece of UFO lore, is the Betts family, if you've ever heard of it. I always wondered, is that ever going to happen again? What was that mysterious silver ball-like thing that followed them around and would move, respond to music? Would that ever happen again? Could whatever that was crash here again or something like that? Whatever happened to it? Nobody even knows what happened to it. So when I saw it, it makes me always think of that story. All right, let's move on. Now I am going to run out of time. What's next? Oh, this is lovely. Speaking of, we're continuing on with the alien stuff here. I get the, people want that. We're getting more aware. We have more people asking questions and wanting answers about aliens, right? There's more of an awareness and openness about that, and that's great. I love it. I've been hoping for that. But some people are a little more frustrated it isn't getting further or paid more attention to, and this person must be, because someone, let me get the article up. Hold on. Someone has graffitied the, Pantheon in Rome, saying aliens exist. Yeah. Do I have the right article up here? Oh, there it is. Yeah. Outrage in Rome after Pantheon, one of the city's greatest wonders, was vandalized with graffiti that says aliens exist. And he's got, I guess those are like little flying saucers they put there. The 2,000-year-old structure was defaced by someone with an apparent interest in UFO and aliens, formerly a Roman temple built sometime around 2,000 years ago. The historic building has been in continuous use as a Catholic church since the 7th century AD, and is considered to be one of the best preserved ancient Roman buildings still standing today. There was an understandable amount of outrage then when it was discovered around 2 weeks ago that someone scribbled "aliens exist" along with what looked like two crude flying saucers on the wall of the building in blue spray paint. The lack of working security cameras in the area has meant that the police have struggled to determine who was responsible for defacing the building. A team of experts has since used a combination of special solvents and lasers to painstakingly remove the paint from the wall without causing future damage. Whether the culprit has been trying to make some sort of statement or had simply sprayed the writing on the wall out of pure defilement remains unclear. Or they're just, maybe it's an attack on the Catholic Church, because I think they're hiding alien stuff. I think they've been hiding alien stuff longer than the U.S. government has. In my opinion. I mean, I think their Area 51 is the secret library of the Catholic Church they have in Rome. I'm just saying. But it does not give somebody right to do this. They should not deface historical sites. It's just bad. It's bad. I get it. You're trying to get your message out there. Aliens exist. I get you. There's more of an awakening, but don't go defacing 2,000-year-old structures. It's bad for the movement. I guess. I don't know. And I'm missing an article for number 7, but let's go to 6 and I'll fix that in a second. All right, number 6, before I run out of time here, because it's getting close. Scientists, this is great, science. There's a mad scientist part of me that loves this kind of stuff, and there's another part of me that's we've been warned about this in sci-fi movies. You shouldn't do this. Scientists create world's first ever synthetic embryo. Technically impressive, tough, morally questionable achievement was reported by researchers at the Weizmann Institute in Israel, who used stem cells from mice to create synthetic embryos without the need for sperm, eggs, or fertilization. They're creating life. That's what they're doing. Remarkably, we show that the embryonic stem cells generate whole synthetic embryos, meaning this includes the placenta and yolk sac surrounding the embryo, said Professor Jacob Hanna. We are truly excited about this work and its implications. Yeah, its implications, what might make you excited, might make other people concerned. In the future, synthetic embryos could be used in place of real animal embryos in medical testing, while also offering new sources of cells and tissue for human transplantation. Those worried about the possibility of scientists creating synthetic creatures using this technique, however, need not worry, right? Need not worry, and do not have the capacity to grow into actual animals. Okay, all right, I'm so reassured. There's also no plans at present to create synthetic human embryos. Synthetic human embryos are not immediate prospect. Not immediate. It's not immediate. We're not working on that right now, but in the future. I'm just saying, eventually, right? We know less about human embryos than mouse embryos, and the efficiency of the mouse synthetic embryos suggests that translating the findings to human requires further development. It doesn't mean they won't do it. In that last statement, doesn't mean they won't do it. Yeah, I was a fan of Battlestar Galactica, the revamp, and they were pretty much not really robots. I mean, they were kind of, but they were created out of synthetic embryos. I mean, even that kind of isn't it similar to like Blade Runner is like they're all synthetic. I don't know. All right, now I lost my Article 7. Why do I have that? The last thing, we're going to run out of time. What was Article 7? Because I lost it. Oh, yeah, this is great. Just to leave you off on some creepiness, let me find the article because I lost it. Here it is. AI. We've talked a lot about AI this year, right? AI creates chilling images of the end of the world. This is an end of the world selfie you're looking at here. They're showing on Unexplained Mysteries, and there's more than just this one. Created by a random generated image created by Google's AI. When somebody asks, show me the last selfie ever taken. And there it is. Stuff of nightmares. It really is. AI capable of creating images of anything simply by requesting it has had a go at imaging the last selfie ever taken. Forget trawling through stock images sites. OpenAI's DALL-E artificial intelligence could soon make it possible for anyone to access pictures of absolutely anything in the mind that can conceive of simply by describing it in natural language what it is you're looking for. DALL-E's interpretation of the request in a series of images of requests, show me the last selfie ever, shows zombie-like figures, blood-stained faces, and hooded skeletons taking selfies in front of a various apocalyptic backgrounds. I don't have all the pictures. I have just this one, but there's like many more. And they're just as terrifying. The images have been shared on social media and are so horrifying in some cases that they've been giving people nightmares. And they're entirely produced by artificial intelligence. Well, I don't understand more about this. I mean, so it like totally created this whole image? Or did it fish it from like the, Google search pool of images? I don't know. But either way, an artificial intelligence says, oh, the last selfie ever, and shows you this. I'm a little terrified. But I'll leave you guys on that for the World Wide Web of Weird. Tonight, we'll get into some ghost stuff in history. Maybe not as terrifying as the last selfie ever taken, but I love a good ghost story. And I love, like I said, I have Irish background. And our guest is Tom Reilly. He is the author of The Protector, The Fall and Rise of Oliver Cromwell. Not an Irishman. No, not loved in Ireland either. And it's interesting to have an Irish person trying to kind of correct the history on Oliver Cromwell. It's a fictional book, but we're not really, we're going to get more into also the history of Ireland. Haunted castles. Our guest lives in one. I can't wait to talk about that. I have my stories about my Banshee experience. I think maybe Banshee. Somebody told me it was a puka. So I'd love to get his take on it. Anything in Ireland. It's my dream place to visit, so I couldn't help but have this guest on tonight. Our guest, Tom Reilly, after the commercial break. And hopefully maybe Rob will be able to join us. I know he's on his way, hopefully. We'll be back after a short commercial break.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Of the second kind, physical evidence of a UFO. Close encounters of the third kind, contact. From Steven Spielberg, the director of Jaws, comes one of the most ambitious and unusual films ever made. And what you will see has never been seen before. It's a cosmic mystery crossing what many scientists believe will be the next threshold of human experience. It is called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It begins in an Indiana town and leads to one inescapable conclusion. We are not alone. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Certificate A. Now showing at the Odeon, Leicester Square.
The international chart-topping, Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest has been described as terrifyingly real, a must-read, shocking and chilling brilliance, genuinely worrying, utterly frightening. Don't read before bed. Described as one of the spookiest writers out there, best-selling author G.L. Davies presents Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest. The true paranormal account that is shocking the world. Dare you enter? Dare you read? Haunted Horror of Haverfordwest is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, and wherever books are sold. Pray you never have to live there.
This is the sound of a space clock aboard a U.S. satellite 180 miles above the Earth. No one winds up this timepiece. It's powered by a tiny battery, a battery that delivers power for years without replacement. Now the same type of battery, the Duracell battery, can bring new reliability and long life to your battery-operated equipment. Radios, cameras, toys, all run far longer. Duracell batteries, the long-distance power cells, outlast any ordinary battery. The same type of battery that keeps space clocks running for years can bring long life to anything powered by batteries. Dura, as in durable. Cell, as in power cell. The Duracell battery, made by Mallory.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Switch to DCS Ranger.
240, nominal to profile.
We're in the pipe. 555.
Tonight on Paranormal Soup, our guest is author Tom Reilly and historian. Historian Tom Reilly has almost single-handedly taken on the might of academia with regard to Cromwell and allegations of his complicity in civilian atrocity stories in Ireland. Change that and you change so much about our understanding of Cromwell. He has appeared on national TV and radio in both UK and Ireland in both documentaries and chat shows. His books on Cromwell have been reviewed by all of the national newspapers in Ireland and many in the UK, including the front cover of the book supplement of the Sunday Times. The Protector, The Fall and Rise of Oliver Cromwell is his first book of fiction, even if it's mostly nonfiction. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Reilly's trenchant defense of Cromwell is the fact that he is a native and has lived in the town of, I'm going to butcher this, Drogheda, Ireland. I probably butchered that to hell. All of his life, Drogheda is one of the places where Cromwell is alleged to have committed civilian atrocities, easily the biggest blot on his career. And Tom himself, if I understand right, is in Ireland himself right now, across the pond. Very early morning for him, I'm sure. And I think he's in a haunted castle himself. We'll get to that. We got a lot more. And you know me, I have Irish heritage and have a big interest in Ireland. That's a place I've always, like, number one place across the pond I want to travel is Ireland. My great-grandfather immigrated from here, married a full-blooded Cherokee woman. I don't know much more than that. I knew he came to be a coal miner, I believe. And I don't know much about him. His last name was Kelly. That was it. My family's connection is very loose. I don't talk to that family very much. And I've only heard a little bit here and there. All I know is that a great-grandfather married a full-blooded Cherokee woman with the last name Kelly. But I've always had Irish heritage interest, and my Banshee experience I've talked on this show, I think maybe a Banshee, somebody told me it was Puka, I always am interested in Irish lore, mythology, and, of course, haunted castles. So we'll get into all that, and we'll take your phone calls later in the show, but let's go ahead and get to our guest. All right, I don't know if we're going to get Rob tonight. I know he's trying to make it back from his gig, but you have me, and we have our guest tonight, Tom Reilly. How you doing tonight, Tom?
Hey, Jason, I'm good. Thank you very much. How are you?
Doing good. Now, am I correct? You are in now currently a castle?
No, actually, you're incorrect.
No, I am correct. Okay.
No, sorry, I actually don't live in a castle. That's information that came to you garbled. Yeah, no, I work in a castle.
You work in a castle? Okay.
Yeah.
It would be awesome to live in one, just as awesome much to work in one.
Well, I spend as much time there, I have to say. In fact, more time there than I do in my own home. So it's just, I tread the boards where lots of people have tread the boards over the years, over the centuries.
Yeah.
So, I'm walking around. I often actually think about history in the States. And I think, something that's kind of 200 years old is old. But in Ireland, we've got buildings here and
thousands.
Yeah, absolutely. Thousands of years old. You've never been here, I gather. Is that right?
I've never left. No, never have. I have, like I said, I have a great-grandfather that immigrated here early 1900s.
Yeah, Kelly.
To work in the coal mines. Kelly was the last name. I've always wanted to know more. I tried to get a hold of a family cousin who I guess had some information, but I never got much out of him. And I know he married a full-blooded Cherokee woman. And that's all I know. I've had experiences all my life, weirdness, and I always had like a gut feeling it's tied to somewhat to my Irish heritage.
Mm. And have you any idea what part of the country that they came from? No.
I would love to know all that stuff. Yeah. I would love to know all that stuff. I really would. I just know I dream of seeing Ireland. I want to go there so bad one of these days. My wife won't fly in a plane yet. She has a fear of planes. But I couldn't go without her because we're both paranormal investigators. I mean, what place has more haunted castles? I mean...
Yeah, we have them. Yeah, they're almost on every corner, really. I mean, it's. I'm sure plenty of your listeners have been to Ireland, but funny when you're living here, you don't kind of really see them because you're kind of oblivious, and you go around and. I mean, there was only an American visitor here recently, and he said, "You know how many castles you've got here? They're just everywhere." And then when you start to look, they're in the towns, they're in the country. I mean, they're virtually everywhere, and of course, every one of them claims to be probably the most haunted castle in the world. So,
What castle is that you work at?
Yeah, sure. So it's called Ardgillan, Ardgillan, and that's in North County Dublin. It's very close to the capital, and it has significant ghost legacy. I think, to be fair, from my own point of view, just to get that out there straight off the bat, I'm searching. If you know what I mean. I find this whole world exceptionally intriguing. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think there's very much else in, somebody's mind that they need to get right. That isn't this, because it's the one thing that people need to sort before you shake off this motor toy.
we're all gonna die. Death and taxes, right?
Exactly.
At least death
Yeah.
is definitely guaranteed. I'm sure people skip on taxes, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I've always said. It was my interest. I've had a lot of weirdness in my life, but I've never understood why people don't take more interest in this stuff. A lot of people do, but there's plenty of people that don't. And I'm like, this is the ultimate destination. This is where we're all going to end up. You don't have any interest in this at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the whole thing. And when I'm walking around the castle and I'm thinking about all the people who used to live there, and the history kind of reeks from the walls. And there's one particular lady, and we tell the story every guest that comes, every visitor that comes to the castle gets told this story about a lady who came visiting the castle. Sorry, my earbud keeps falling out.
Sorry.
And thank you. And she, anyway, she was a very strong swimmer, and she decided that she would go down to the sea. This is the story behind the death. She'd go down to the sea on the 23rd of November, believe it or not, and that's a very cold time in Ireland.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's a cool time about anywhere go in the water, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, so she got into difficulty very quickly, and she had her maid with her. And we know this because we have the coroner's report,
Right.
And its actual detail is incredibly, finite.
Right.
So a wave came, took her straight out to sea. She died immediately, or drowned, and they brought her back to the castle to one of the bathrooms, and they put her in a bath to see if hot water would make any difference, if they could revive her. That's
Good old school medicine there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it didn't do it. So anyway, she died, and she left two children behind, and the following year, it was very sad, really. Her husband died, so the two children were orphaned. But she's called, and this is all Googleable, she's called the Lady of the Stairs. And if anybody just bangs that into Google,
This all sounds very familiar.
Really?
I think I've heard this story. I mean, I get into ghost stories and stuff like that. I have tons of books on them, and this one I'm sure I've seen or on a TV show somewhere. It sounds very familiar to me.
Yeah.
Was she? So what are some of the ways people have encountered her spirit or ghost?
So yeah, this is the whole thing that I'm waiting. I'm there 12 years now, and I'm just waiting to have that seismic event happen in my life. But lots of others. Oh, there's no question about that. Like, one of our night watchmen has had frequent visits from this lady, because he spends the whole night there, and the most recent thing actually was, like everybody, she was having a bad hair day, and yeah, it's so true. That's what he recounted. And he met her on one of the walks that goes around the castle, and she borrowed his comb, and that's something that he.
Did he think she was like a real person? Like she's like, "Can I borrow your comb?" And like he thought she was like a real person. Was like that kind of experience.
That's exactly what the experience was.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah. It wasn't until she sort of disappeared, and he wasn't sure exactly where he was gone, but his comb was gone too, and that was just unfortunate. But so and at night too, whether it's the wood that creaks or whether it's doors that open, I have to say, Jason, I've seen doors open on their own. I've seen.
There's I know you're a logical person, I can tell, so I'm sure you sit there and try to rationalize why that happens.
I do. Yeah. And my problem is, and it's just a mind that I've been afflicted with. My problem is, that I like to know the explanation. And a lot of the time, if the explanation isn't logical or scientific, I'm thinking, okay, what is it then? So, and I try and not to default to the supernatural, because my instincts tell me that it can't be, and if science can't explain it, well then, if I come back in 100 years, maybe science will explain it. But that's because I'm so cynical, and I can't accept stuff that isn't on the face of it very clearly. There's a good reason behind it,
I'm interested to know, is the sightings of her, because I call them archetypes to hauntings, and especially interested in the ones that took place before Americans' history of hauntings. You got a lot of history in Ireland. Was she a lady in white if I'm remembering this, she's seen as a lady in white, like
Yes.
in a white dress.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The reason I'm interested in that is because of the story. Because there's, if you look at hauntings across, from Europe to America, and not, I mean, in Mexico even. We have Archer Road here, a lady in white. There's Mexico's La Llorona, and usually it has to do with a drowning, a body of water.
Wow.
Children sometimes being drowned by the mother or abandoned by the mother.
Yeah.
It's always a mother, and she always drowns in water, and then she's seen as a ghost in white.
Yeah, it seems like a fairly stereotypical story, but I can tell you absolutely categorically that this is the kind of thing. I mean, this actually happened.
Oh yeah, I believe and a lot of these are backed up by actual stories that actually happened, but it seems to be like a ghostly archetype, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that happens.
Yeah. I get
Maybe
that,
it's a mythology that follows after the instant. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of legacy. There's a lot of stories that get told, through the years. I mean, there are other spirits in the castle that I've been told about. At one stage, in about 3 years ago, before COVID hit us all, there was a paranormal investigation done, and there's actually another one coming up as well. But
oh man, I wish I could be there. I wish I could be there.
Yeah. I was there for the, they took me around. I showed them all the castle, and they took me around with all their equipment. And of course, I was a little skeptical at the beginning, but they showed me the program at the end, and I mean, I just can't tell you the kind of things that came across. Now, if it's always my difficulty is that it's always kind of mostly shrouded in ambiguity. You know what I mean? There are sounds that you kind of say, what was that sound? And it could be interpreted a certain way. And where did the sound come from in the first place anyway? At one stage, the lady who was doing the paranormal investigation just said to me, just freeze. She says, don't move. There's a lady standing beside you, And,
that's great.
Oh yeah. Well, the hairs literally stood up on the back of my neck. And you do get into that mode, you do think, okay, am I conditioned here because these guys are looking for something, or, how does, what am I just going along with this, or is it something else? And that's what I love about the whole thing. You don't know for sure. Nobody, in my opinion, in the entire history of the world has proved one way or the other that there's something conclusively that happens after we die, or there isn't anything conclusively after we die. That's my opinion.
You wonder if that's ever going to be proven. I am somebody who is obsessed with that question. I've been all my life. I've seen. I'll go to this because I'm interested because of my Irish tradition and this experience. My you see the green glow behind me here?
Yes.
See this? There's a reason I have that behind. I tell this to guests, and the audience knows. Is my first real memory of a paranormal experience was I was 4 or 5 years old with my cousin Phil. And I was staying the night at his mom's boyfriend's house with my cousin. We were sleeping in the same room. And I remember laying there with my cousin, and we're talking, whatever, we're not asleep, and I start to hear like a woman cry. And I remember, I don't remember what we said to each other. I was 4 or 5 years old, but this memory's never escaped me.
Wow.
I thought it was my aunt crying, and I think I might have asked my cousin, "Is your mom? Is that your mom? Like we're 4 or 5. Is your mom crying?" I think I asked. And he didn't hear. His memory later on, he told me he didn't hear anything. But we both saw something. That crying got louder and louder and turned into this wailing pitch of like high pitch, and there was like this poof through the corner of the wall, and this green floating head came into the room and flew around. The face, afterwards, as a kid, I realized I was always terrified of the Wizard of Oz because the Wicked Witch reminded me of this green glowing head woman.
Yes.
It was a female-like face, but in just terror. And it was screaming, flying around the room in a circle around us. My cousin gets under the blankets. I get under there with him. And then I stop hearing the noise. And I think we're safe. And I remember going to I remember this part. Like, this is one of the distinct. I remember going to lift the blanket up. My cousin's like right here on my shoulder going, no. We're 4 or 5. We're pissing our diapers, or something like that.
Yeah,
so I pull up the blanket like this and peek my head out, and this thing's above me and comes down. And I start hearing the screaming again. My cousin goes brushing off the bed, rolls me off, no blanket for cover. This thing's flying around me. I'm like this.
God.
And I get under the blanket, hold on to my cousin who can't get the door open. He's like jiggling the door. He's trying to reach it, get the door open. He can't get the door open. He gets the door open. We get outside, get his mom and her boyfriend up. They open the door, throw on the lights. There's nothing there.
And you're safe. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And,
Terrifying.
that memory stuck with me. I never forgot it. And it opened my eyes to a world right away as a very young age that reality is not what I'm being told at school or by my parents or by anybody else. Anything's possible. Like when I saw Slimer and the Ghostbusters, I was like, that reminded me of it. You know, so I remember I was a little kid putting Ghostbuster flyers up saying, call my mom's phone number, call me to go hunt ghosts when I was like 8 or 9. My mom was so mad. But, this opened my eyes to this other world. And as I got older and got more into this stuff and like researching different mythologies and I'm looking for anything on green floating heads, I found a little bit of a connection to banshees. Not that green floating heads is totally connected to banshees, but the wailing.
Banshees. Okay. Yeah.
The wailing.
I was going to jump in there. That's exactly the case. Yeah. Well, banshees, I think, are a very Irish thing. And it's to do, well, my understanding is that it's to do with if somebody's going to die in the locality or in the house. There's, in fact, I'll give you a good example. Again, another very good friend of mine who currently lives in the States. He in the towns over here, the houses are all terraced, so that would mean they're all connected. So you can imagine a typical street. And one night he heard a noise and he looked out the window and he could see this banshee who was very tall, and she was actually able to look into the first story windows of the houses. And he watched her go down one side of the street looking into all the houses. Later, of course, he recalled that she was looking for somewhere in particular, and he was crapping his pants, as you say, and he came up. She came up then his side of the road. And as she looked into his window, he was just petrified. He bent down and she said to him, "No, not you." And she moved on. And sure enough, the following day, just up the road, somebody died. And this is the kind of, what the banshee, at least in Ireland, what it's supposed to do is it's the harbinger of death.
Right.
And if you're in the firing line, she will come wailing. And I believe the sound, I don't know if you remember what the sound was like, but I believe it's like a seal. When a seal, cries, and it's very guttural.
I heard something that reminded me a little bit of it recently is, I think it was in the new Ghostbusters movie, is the Aztec death whistle that they had in that movie.
Okay.
It reminded me a little bit of it. That's I don't know if I've heard a seal cry. I'm gonna have to look that up and see if that's similar to that.
Well,
I haven't heard that.
Sure, yeah. This is what they say. Now again, like it's a huge thing over here. I can tell you, Jason, because when we're growing up, it's like, I mean, we've been Americanized as well, and we see all the movies you see, and we don't have
Leprechaun 1 through 8 or.
Yeah. We might come to that later if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's monsters under the bed. Like that's not something that we would really have had, but we certainly would have had banshees. And the banshees, the banshee wasn't under the bed, but she was always going to be outside. So I mean, for a long time until I became a full blown adult, that's the kind of thing that you would be afraid of. You would just be afraid of the banshee.
Yeah, well, I think that that's what I've always been interested in Ireland. Though they have a lot of different I don't even call creatures, or you get the banshee. Somebody told me once, I think it was Spooky from Spooky and Raven show. Spooky had Irish heritage, and she asked her grandmother. They thought it was a puka, that I might have encountered, not a banshee. I'm like, okay, but there's just I always trust my gut a little bit. I have no reasonable to knowledge to know, but I've always felt in my gut that it's somehow tied to my Irish heritage. Maybe I'm wrong, but she said puka, and I'm like, okay, that's supposed to be like a trickster spirit, I guess. Too.
That's correct. That's absolutely bang on. Yeah. Well, that's the way I've been brought up, and the tradition here too. I mean, there are, there are lots of stories. Like the one that I like is funny enough, my subject, the subject of the book that we may talk about later briefly, if you like, is Oliver Cromwell, and in Cromwell's house, which still exists today, it's in a place called Ely in Cambridgeshire. There's staff there. It's a visitor attraction now, but it's a medieval house, and it goes back, to the 1200s, I think. But anyway, they experience pukas there, and what that is as you say, like they're not terrifying. They don't come with a negative experience. They come with
Mine
it.
was a negative, scary experience. That's why I don't know. Banshee sounds more like it, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, in general, this is what they do. They, for instance, in Cromwell's house, the staff's laces, their shoelaces, are opened far too many times for it to be a coincidence.
Like they untie their shoes.
They untie their shoes, and it's only as soon as they're untied, they'd retie them, and 5 minutes later they're open again. And they laugh at this. They kind of think, oh yeah, there's the pukas again, and that's what they're rogues, little rogues.
Yeah, and they sort of my research on pukas after that, and I was like, yeah, they sound playful, and they play tricks and stuff. Like this was not playful or trick what I saw. This was scary horror movie, like Run for Your Life for a 4 or 5-year-old at least, But even still, if I saw it now, I'd be scared. When I talk about it at night, and when I go to lay down in bed, I like open my eyes in the dark, and I go wait for that green glow or that sound to ever happen again. It terrifies me to this day.
You must
there's part of me that wants to see it again. There is a part of me, but not alone. At least when I was 4 or 5, I had my cousin Phil. He was 13 years old when I brought it up to him. I go, you remember the green floating head? Okay. And I've never seen the blood just drain from their face.
Really? Yeah.
He got really white. He goes, I thought that was a dream.
Yeah.
He goes, I thought that was a dream. I'm like, a nightmare I had. I go, no, I was there with you, and it was real. He got so white. I ran into somebody. I was going to say, I did run into somebody else, and I've had a caller into the show now that have had a green floating head experience. But the caller was not from Ireland, but the first person I ever ran into was my first paranormal hunt. Ghost hunt. It wasn't really an investigation, and we were after hours drinking after the hunt, and having drinks with the teacher or instructor, and he heard me and another person talking at different times, and he made us compare our stories because he heard us both talking about a green floating head, and she was Irish, or had a big Irish background too, and she saw a green floating head over her father's in the middle of the night, about the same age as I was.
Whoa.
So that was another reason I made an Irish connection to it as well.
Yeah, and again, all these things are absolutely possible, and that's what I love about this. But one of the things that struck me there while you were talking was, I mean, if you now encountered or had this experience as an adult, I mean, I suspect that you would treat it a lot differently. And it might
pull out my cell phone. That's what I wish I would have had back then. It would have been awesome.
Yeah, but you may, as an adult and as the adult that you've become, you may try and have an encounter and try and connect with because I suspect again that you don't think death is imminent, that the head isn't going to kill you, but surely you would try and communicate, and I know I would, and that's the kind of it's the communication thing that intrigues me. What's the head? What was like, where did that come from?
Why could I hear it and my cousin couldn't? He is on the other side of the family that does not have Irish heritage. So I thought it was another connection. I thought he could not, his memory of it, we talked about it for several times years later. It's like, I don't remember the crying or the screaming. I don't remember making any noise at all. I just could see the head floating around. I'm like, I could hear it. It was deafening.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, a lot of these things and what I where I come from in my head is I always think, like you've just explained a very genuine experience that has shaped and formed you in some way, and it's so sincere. And from my perspective, that's the kind of thing that I really want to have. I don't know how some people have them and some people don't have them. Is it that you just you're not ready, or you're not going to be one of the ones?
I've asked that same question.
Yeah,
I've asked that because I've had a lot of experiences, to be honest. I mean, I've had a ton of experiences since then. I mean, I think the most common experience for people that I run into that don't have these experiences like I have, but have had one, it's a loved one who's passed on, who's come to them. I've had that experience. I saw my grandmother after her passing on the day of her wake in a mirror at my work. I mean, she came. The mirror turned black, and I saw her, and she was trying to let me know she was all right. She died of Alzheimer's, and I was really torn up about what happens to somebody who's that confused at the end of their life. So I mean, there's people that have that encounter or a loved one that comes to them. That's their only paranormal experience, but that's one of my favorites to hear. And I think a lot of people have those experiences and don't talk about them because they're personal.
Yeah. That's a very good point, and they may not. Yeah, you see, what with the logical brain that I have, if you don't mind, if you could tease this out just a little.
Go for it.
Yeah, well, it's just if you go back to let's say the point of death, somebody has been alive for a certain amount of time, and now they lose consciousness because they're dead. It's assumed that rigor mortis sets in reasonably soon. And so my point is, like, at that particular, what's the stage, or where is the stage that is it the energy? Is it the spirit? Is it the soul? What are we saying? And I know this is the $64,000 question, but all of these either apparitions or experiences, or the
near-death experiences.
Yeah, all of those things. Yeah, they have to start with life expiring and death beginning. So I've got two questions, I suppose, and they're rhetorical questions. I'm not asking you directly because everybody would have an opinion on this. I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
But at what stage is it possible that something can exist after everything has expired? Do you get me? I mean, is it the energy?
Yeah.
Like a stone has energy,
right?
And in an inanimate object, has
energy doesn't disappear; it just transforms.
So do you think that's what it is?
I do. I mean, I am a spiritual Gnostic. I tell people, I've put on the census, I believe in Jediism. I'm a Star Wars fan. But I'm a spiritual Gnostic. I believe in somewhat of a higher power, or I more like see it as a force. But I believe in an afterlife. I've seen too much. You talk about spirit communication. I plug for the shameless plug here for the show is once in a while on the show we do a live spirit box night. And we have people call in. Because there's a lot of people that do spirit box videos and stuff like that, and they try to talk to dead celebrities. I'm not interested in that. No. I am interested in people trying to connect to their loved ones, especially their loved ones. Not always. I do people call in and try to get celebrities. I'll let them. Zach, I know you're listening. But people do call in for their loved ones, and those are my favorite calls. And we've gotten messages. I've gotten audio that's come through that didn't even come from the spirit box. It came directly into the show with a direct message to the person asking on the phone. It was very personal. I mean, we've had stuff like that. I have my biggest interest. All of my favorite movies have to do with like the afterlife. Yeah, because I've always had this interest on what's the other side. What is that? Where do we go after we move on, or are we reborn? That's the whole reincarnation take, and all these questions. And I still have questions. I'll probably have questions right up to the moment I die. I think we all will.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you had the answers, you'd be a millionaire or a billionaire. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
I have a reincarnation.
Some guru.
Story. Pardon me?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I would love it. Does this tie into Oliver Cromwell?
Well, it does. It does. You're very astute.
Because I was looking at pictures of Oliver Cromwell today, and I got one, and I got to say, this picture. There's a photo. I should get the share screen up. There's a photo or a painting of Oliver Cromwell, and you. I gotta say, let me see if I got it here, because you have a resemblance, and I'm a big wonder. Like, you're an Irish guy that's defending Oliver Cromwell, which is a bit odd.
Well,
the IRA would love that. Let me. That's what I'm not a huge historian person. I don't know my history completely. I mean, I know tidbits. I've always been interested in history. Where is it? There it is. There it is.
Okay.
Right there.
That's me.
Now, hold on. Do I have the share screen up?
Get me beside of you.
Yeah. I wish I could put it side by side with you.
I know.
Let me do that.
Yeah. But you're
there's
right.
a resemblance.
Yeah. There is a resemblance. Look, you're not the first one to say that, obviously.
Really?
Well, I've told the story a few times, and this is actually the best way to tell it, because now the spoiler alert actually works very well, because what I'm about to tell you is kind of fascinating. So, so he lived a life, and again, he had a fascinating life. But at the end of his life, he naturally died, but he died of natural causes, and but he caused enough upheaval in his life for his body to be unburied. After about 2 years after he died, and again,
this is Charles II
correct,
took over, right?
Yeah. I'm not getting into the detail right now because it's complicated, but he did. The king was the top man in the country, obviously, and because Cromwell, the name of the book is The Protector, and because Cromwell had actually assumed the role of head of state, which is effectively the king. Cromwell was targeted even after death. I mean, there were a lot of people targeted in life because they had signed the king's death warrant and so on. So Charles II came back, and to go back to the story, so he's Cromwell is dead and he thinks he's safe, so they dig him up and they hang, draw, and quarter him, and that means that they cut him up and they chop off his head and they put his torso in one part of England and his legs and his arms and so on. But his head, as a sort of a warning to others not to do what he did, it's put on a railing outside Westminster Hall. And,
this is like some Game of Thrones stuff here, man.
Very similar,
right?
Yeah. They didn't make this stuff up. They're right back to history.
Right.
This is what they used to do, you know. So, and as a deterrent, you know, so the head's there, and it doesn't just last a day. It lasts 20 years on this railing. Yeah, it's incredible. It actually lasts longer than Charles does on the throne, but that's a different route to go down. So
Charles was partier, man. He was busy.
He so was, yeah. He had mistresses all over the place, that guy.
Oh, yeah. He was a busy guy.
He so was. Carnal things were much more interesting to him than political things. So this big storm came along and the head was blown down. So it's on the railing. Now, the railing is stuck through Cromwell's head. And again, all of this is Googleable. You can Google Cromwell's head spike, and you will see a picture of the spike through Cromwell's head, because what happened was there was a soldier who was on duty below Westminster Hall. The head blew down, and everybody knew he knew straight away that it was Cromwell's head. He took it under his cloak. He brought it home. He put it in his bed, under the bed.
What?
What do you see? No, not in the bed.
I was going to say, that's gross.
Yeah, that was a bit weird. Sorry.
Yeah. Asking for some trouble there.
So,
sorry.
Yeah, that's good. That's a different show. So he, anyway, he didn't tell anybody he stole the head. And then he bequeathed the head to his daughter on his deathbed. And I'm just going to gallop through the centuries here because it's a long enough story. There are books on this story, believe it or not.
Yeah, I've heard some of it.
Yeah. So it goes to a museum, it goes to a circus. In the mid 19th century, there's a guy called Samuel Russell who's a bit of a character, and he brings it around to dinner parties, and so they're handing Cromwell's head around at dinner parties, and somebody picks off a bit of the nose, somebody picks off a bit of the ear. But it's a good keepsake, you know.
Like a little Cromwell's nose hair here. Okay, yeah.
Exactly, you know. How can you prove that? So
get his wart.
Get his wart, exactly. That's quite significant. Yeah, again, you're so tuned in. This is so impressive. So by the time the 1930s come along, Cromwell's head is still doing the rounds, and there's a family called Wilkinson who actually get the head, and they wonder, is it the head? Anyway, they get a scientific analysis done, and whatever the methods had then, they proved, because of the wart places, there was a wart in his eye socket and a wart on his chin.
That's how they proved it, was with the warts?
That's one of the methods. Wow. They also had paintings, which you've just shown, and they did, eye to nose to mouth and the distance. You know, it was a very scientific test, but they did prove that it was Cromwell's head, and it took them about 30 years and a couple of generations, believe it or not, to certainly one, to decide what they do with the head. Cromwell attended a college in Cambridge called Sidney Sussex. So they approached the dean of the college and they said, can we bury Cromwell's head in there? And he said, look, this is a very volatile item that you're asking me to, because there are lots of Irish people who would want to dig it up and beat the living crap out of it. And there are lots of English people who might want to honor it. And so they decided to keep the location secret. And the dean of the college is the only one who knows where the head is buried. But this is the kicker. Cromwell finally departed this world in March 1960. And Jason, I was born in March 1960.
Oh, wow. So it really is a connection.
It's a significant one, and if you were a believer, which I'm not, in reincarnation, you would.
I am. I've had I own a personal experience, but I'm a big believer in it.
Wow. Okay. And again, I'd love to tell you that I was, but I can't get my head around the whole idea. Yeah. Because to me, it's kind of it's illogical. But that doesn't say that it doesn't happen. But I do find, oddly, and I'm just going to add, fuel to the fire. I do find myself looking at the world through 17th century eyes a lot. You know, I genuinely do. I
Yeah.
see technology, and I think to myself, what would Oliver Cromwell think of this? What would he think of that? You know, and it's kind of an experience that is really strange, and you'll probably, and I get the reason why you would. You'd probably say, Tom, can you not wake up and smell the coffee, man? You know.
Well, I was looking at the photo. I'm serious. This morning, I was getting ready for the show, and I was looking up
Yeah.
stuff. Because I'm familiar with Oliver Cromwell. It's an interesting point in what, mid 1600s, sometime around there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting part of England's history. I mean, you're talking about the royals being literally kicked off the throne and a commoner ruling. It's a Puritan movement. And for the Irish, it wasn't great because they were mainly Catholic. And what I would find interesting as I looked at the painting, and you're an Irish, you're living in Ireland. You never left. You're in the town, as I read in the bio, where the most atrocities has. Wouldn't it be like? Because I was thinking about it, like a karmic lesson for you if you were Oliver Cromwell. Now we can get into this. I'm really glad we can get into this. I'm sorry.
No, it's
but
good.
as Oliver, to be born as an Irishman in the town you're most noted for atrocities like a penance or something. And now you're working to defend him. And maybe I would like to know, especially now knowing this, what got you started with this, with basically defending Oliver Cromwell and getting into this research? Now I really want to know that.
I know.
What sparked that? Because
yeah. No, I know, and I understand the tone of that last. I think I have to say it has crossed my mind. And just before I get into the reason of what happened, it has, and it crossed my mind a lot. Because it's not only do I take the stand that I do, I contend a lot of things aren't true about Cromwell's visit here, but I also do it with an exceptional passion, and I do it with a passion that some people kind of don't really understand, because I'm completely driven to exculpate this guy from the crimes that have been that he has allegedly committed. It's a simple enough story, and to be honest, if you, as you rightly say, if you were to contrive this, and if something was driving this for Cromwell to actually be reincarnated, Drogheda, which is how you pronounce it, Drogheda.
Drogheda. See, I was butchering the hell out of it. Sorry,
you didn't do too badly. Is the place where you would probably put Cromwell, because yes, he's supposed to have killed about 3,000 civilians here in Drogheda, which is nonsense. He didn't, and I can prove that whether I'm reincarnated or not. I can absolutely.
I would like to talk about that actually a little bit. I mean, I know not everybody comes here for the paranormal, but I love the history.
Yeah, we can absolutely, and I'd be thrilled to talk about that. But just the reason I got into it was, I never left the parish. I've been born here and I still live here, and my house, where I currently live, is on the line of the town walls. There were medieval town walls at that stage, and so they would have been built. It's very easy to remember. They were built in 1234, 1234, and they still existed when Cromwell came in 1649. But they were very old. So anyway, he knocked them down, and I was always so he made a breach in the walls, and I was always just intrigued as to what the heck did that guy come here for and do this to us. Because if you have experienced, and you haven't, but the Irish educational system, anybody who has, there are, just a little aside, there are 80 million people who claim Irish, ancestry, Irish legacy, and I'd say the vast majority of them would be just abhorred with what I'm saying now, because I defend Cromwell. But I do it because of the facts. I don't do it because of mythology or propaganda. So that's it's very unusual for somebody Irish to be taking the stand that I do. So I was curious, and to be honest, Jason, what I did was, the first thing I did, which is something that nobody had done previous to me, essentially, was I went down to the local records, because I live here and I understand the way things work. And I went into the local, I don't know what you call it, but it's a local government agency, and I went in and I said, "Hey guys, what do you have from the year 1649?" And they presented me with this book. It's there. It's just like stepping right back in time. It's amazing. You open it up. It's got beautiful writing. It's lovely. It's so eloquently written.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just amazing. You're just touching history. But what's written there are the names of thousands of people who weren't killed, who lived through this. And what's even more amazing is there's practically no mention of the battle or the siege, this seismic event where
Yeah, you think that would be written.
you would, you so would. That somebody, how did they miss this?
Yeah.
So that's what set me off. Then I began to think, okay, so all the historians seem to be telling me one thing at school, where the entire population is wiped out, and they're still there when I look at the records. So that's how it started, and that's how I got into it. And if I was Cromwell, I suppose that's a good place to start too.
Was for Cromwell, I mean, what I remember, the history of it is, so like Cromwell, he died. I think he had a son who took over for like a very short period of time, and the royals just took right back over. Were they the ones that kind of rewrote the history of Cromwell because he was a Puritan? He definitely was not a fan of the royals or Catholics, or but he seemed to have kind of more of a
Puritanical
at the time for the six. Yeah. Like he was different than the times called for it a little bit. He was I remember there's a show I love called Horrible Histories, and it's not the greatest historical representation for things, but it's so funny. And they had an Oliver Cromwell episode,
they did,
and of course they show him all warty and stuff, and they made him out to be this like pure, like this Puritan nanny,
like Christmas and stuff. Yeah, you don't
ban Christmas. That was it. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So it's always been interesting who Oliver Cromwell really was, because history is always somewhat a little bit messed up and rewritten propaganda wise or whatever.
Well, the victors usually write history,
right?
And when you were talking there, I was thinking of so many things to respond with, and you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, but the big thing about Cromwell is that again, not getting deeply into the history of Ireland, but we're very close to England. And obviously geographically, and in so many other ways as well, culturally, socially, we've people emigrated to England in their droves at different stages in Ireland's history. But I was reading recently somewhere where it said in the United Nations there are something like 190 nations, not 190 countries, and England, believe it or not, have invaded 170 of them. So we were always going to be on the target list, and for a lot of reasons as well, because we would have been a good hop-off point for any European country who wanted to attack England from the west. So, so they came over here very, very early. It was 1169 when they arrived. They were called Normans because some of them had been originally from France, and over a few generations they came. So the Normans came to Ireland in 1169. So they've been trying to subjugate Ireland all that time. So Cromwell, believe it or not, was the first one, and it took about 600 years for this to happen, to succeed. He succeeded. Right. Yeah, he came over, and again, it was a lot to do with not so much religion, but it was to do with his parliamentarian regime, who had chopped the head off the king, Charles I. They assumed power in England. And he was the one given the task to make sure that there would be no army coming from Ireland, because it might seem like we're very small, but there's, back in those days, the populations actually dictated that we could easily have, got an army together, and we were very much a royal country. We were into the king. This wasn't a very Irish thing. The IRA, nationalist Irish people always think, we were very different, but we weren't. We were big into our king in those days. So. Yeah, so that's essentially what happened. He was the one who won. We were under the English submission from the moment he left Ireland. And then when he died, and when the king returned to the throne, they wanted to completely eradicate the legacy that Cromwell had left. So they rewrote it, and they decided to throw in the fact that when he came to Drogheda, just to blacken his name, they said that he killed men, women, and children. And that was just one thing. It's the only thing that I have a problem with. I have no issue whatsoever being, oppressed by England over the last 800 years. That's fine. And I'm very Irish in that regard. But the big thing was, Jason, when the 19th century came along and we were trying to rid Ireland of the English yoke, so to speak,
right,
where we all kind of galvanized and everything Irish came to the fore, and we dug back into history and say, what kind of a monster can we find now just to be, the English bogeyman?
Something to band together.
Yeah, just to get the juices flowing, and, just to hate them so much more. So we found Cromwell. And that's when a lot of books come out about this guy. And, it was convenient then to tap into the 17th century propaganda. And so that's how it all happened. He's been much maligned over the years. And it's fine with me to malign the English people of the time, but just not the guy who didn't do it, and I don't believe he did it.
Is there good ghost stories of Cromwell? Like, did he have any haunting sightings of Cromwell? I mean, you think you might haunt around if your name's being belied, being accused of atrocities you never had. It might leave your spirit kind of wandering a little.
Yeah, there are lots really. There are lots of stories about Cromwell's soldiers as well. I mean, for instance, Cromwell's house is obviously haunted by Cromwell. There's been an investigation done there, where Cromwell, interacted with the lady who was represented the Cambridge Paranormal Society. He had very positive conversation with her. There's a place actually up the road from me, Malahide Castle, and that's haunted by a Cromwellian soldier, and well known to be. And again, the thing with him was he oppressed Catholics, and this is the whole thing. You're not, if you oppress Catholics, you're going to get a bad legacy in this country. So he was actually hung, drawn, and quartered, which is a thing they used to do. And visitors to the castle see this ghost who actually splits into 4 pieces.
Oh, wow.
Just drops into 4 pieces. And it's an indication that that's how he died.
Right.
So you've got so many things. And even back in the 1640s, when Cromwell was here and the battle was raging, there are stories, and they're documented stories. And this is what I'm a great believer in documentary evidence, as you could probably tell. So there were books written at the time that spoke of priests who represented Catholicism in Ireland, where they were being shot by Cromwellian soldiers, and the bullets, they were musket balls in those days, they were cylindrical. They stopped before they hit the body.
I've heard some of this
before. Yeah, and it's sometimes a Cromwellian soldier, they may dislodge Irish people from their their house or their home, or in some instances a convent or a monastery, where they would get rid of them, and then they would sleep in there. But of course, they didn't sleep soundly, because there were all sorts of experiences during the night of the people who they had killed. The priests and some of the Cromwellian soldiers are supposed to have died screaming or died roaring, because all these spirits and ghosts of the people they had killed were coming at them. So that, and again, this is documented from the 17th century. So look, this stuff is, you can't dispel all of this. There's
something happened. Something happened. But that's the thing. Is it its own Irish propaganda or Catholic propaganda to make up these stories, or are they based on something real? That's always been my question on these instances. I'm not a historian like you, so you have more knowledge of the actual documents that pertain to these instances. But I've heard some of these, and again, I have to wonder. I mean, the Catholic Church puts out, just like I said, they've manipulated and changed history to their liking. When they have the power of control.
So much, absolutely, yeah. And one of the things, that Cromwell sort of was very particular about, and naturally, was his religion, because religion was massive back in those days. And he was a Puritan, and so he didn't see any reason why you needed a hierarchy or a ladder to get to God. As far as he was concerned, you didn't need a priest, you didn't need a bishop, an archbishop, a cardinal, a pope.
He hated Christmas.
He did. But I'm going to give you a good reason for that. And the reason is because the word mass is at the end of it. And people don't realize that, because Catholicism represented the mass, and the mass represented Catholicism. And again, just to be clear on one of the reasons why he disliked Catholicism was to do with the political aspect of it. It was essentially a political organization. He had no issues whatsoever. And he said it often throughout life with individual, like the flock. He had more issues with the shepherds of the flock.
The power of the church.
Exactly, the power of the church. I mean,
it's dangerous power. I mean, we got plenty of history to back it up.
Absolutely. The Crusades, Jason, back in the day when they just went and, they just wanted the Holy Land for the West, when the Cathars down in France.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about the Cathars on this show and the atrocities of that. I mean, it's a genocide. The Cathars mean good people.
Yes.
People knew them as the good people.
Bon Homs, yeah, that's how we pronounce it. Bon Homs, good men, absolutely, yeah. And they just, because they wouldn't convert. I mean, what a thing to do. They were all killed. I mean, isn't that just horrendous?
I think of, I always think, when I think of the Catholic Church and the history of it, I always go back to Mel Brooks' History of the World, the Inquisition, because he makes fun of it in there. But I mean, you talk about some horrendous, horrible human atrocities. The Inquisition's right there on top of the list.
And it was all to do. So much of it too was to do with money, because there's
claiming other people's property.
Absolutely.
Oh, you're not Catholic. Yeah. We'll take everything you own. Thank you. And we're going to torture you. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you can see, when you talk about Catholicism in this country, in Cromwell, you think, and people often say, oh, Cromwell hated Catholics. But what people don't realize is that he had damn good reason for that. And he didn't actually hate Catholics. He just hated what they represented in terms of the
power of the church.
Power of the church. Yeah. And that just, sorry, I'm just going to take this a different direction, if you know what I mean. So you mentioned at some point earlier on the conversation about, a power, maybe a supernatural power, a higher power, I think you may have said. And again, this is where I'm, and again, I spoke about things that are very important in life, and I think this is so important, So what, if you don't mind me asking you, and again, you can sidestep the question if you like, but in terms of a power, do you believe in a God? Do you believe in a higher power that's not necessarily God, or how does that shape up for you?
Well, I only got a couple minutes before a commercial break, but I've talked about it on the show, so the audience gets the gist of my idea of it. I had an experience in life where I was attacked by something some people would describe as demonic. I don't like to quantify it. All I know is it was very crazy. It levitated me up off my bed, was attacking me in the middle of the night after 4 months of terrorizing me. And I called out to God at that moment. I said, please save me, please save me. And this thing dropped me back on my bed, screamed, there was a bright light, and I felt this feeling of from going from complete unadulterated terror, complete terror, to everything's completely fine. The most compassionate love I've ever felt in my life. I have your back kind of feeling. And this thing was gone. I was also kind of chided by, I think, what was a great-grandfather of mine came through in that moment. I saw for a split second or two that kind of chided me because I kind of brought the scene upon myself. It's a long story. But in that moment, I felt this just immense, compassionate love, and I believe in a higher power. I don't call it. I can call it God. I believe in a force or a will that drives life. Just in the amazing reasons that life even exists scientifically.
So you think it produced life as well as driving life?
It's driving life. It is life. It's like Yoda describes in Star Wars. It's the rocks. It's the trees. It's you. It's me. We're more than this crude matter, and we're all connected to this source. This whatever this is, this force that drives us and drives life and drives love and compassion. And I've felt that one more time in my life, and that's when I saw a translucent child or a 9-year-old kid in my parents' living room that years later would be my son. I saw him before he was born, and I felt that same immense compassion, I have your back feeling, like you're never alone. And to me, that whatever that feeling is, that energy, that's what people described. I've heard near death. That's a source to me. That's God. That love, that compassion, that feeling. That's not a shape or form. It's an energy and a feeling. I can't give it anything more than that.
But it's not the God of the Bible, Jason. Is that right?
Well, I think the God of the Old Testament is Ancient Aliens. I'm a big Ancient Aliens fan. I think the New Testament and Jesus Christ I have a lot of interest in, and I think there's a lot more. There's a difference there. That's a whole other conversation. We got to go to commercial break. I have to say on that. But we'll come back and open up the phone lines if you're good with that, and take some phone calls too after the short commercial break with our guest Tom Reilly, the author of The Protector, The Fall and Rise of Oliver Cromwell. And I do want to get into a little more of the history of Oliver Cromwell too. It'd be interesting to hear. And maybe some knowledge if you have some of the other haunted castles. I've always wanted to go to Leap Castle in Ireland. Is like one of my desired destinations. If you got any ghost stories about that, I'd love to hear. I don't know, maybe. I Leap Castle I've seen on shows and stuff. I'm like, I want to go there. It's one of my bucket list haunted destinations I want to go to. Like I said, we'll open the phone lines. We'll be back after this short commercial break.
experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard. Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift, a refreshing and fun read. I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Edgar Allan Poe wrote Spirits of the Dead with a pen dipped in warm blood. You will see the ultimate in terror with this important all-star cast. Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda in Edgar Allan Poe's Spirits of the Dead. Only Poe's demented genius could bring to the screen such horror and evil. Spirits of the Dead stars Brigitte Bardot, Alain Delon, Jane Fonda, Terence Stamp, and Peter Fonda. Directed by three masters of the cinema, Federico Fellini, Louis Malle, and Roger Vadim. Spirits of the Dead is an adventure in terror beyond your wildest nightmares. Spirits of the Dead in color is rated R.
The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is 42. Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
But it was the question. The ultimate question. Of everything.
That's not a question. Only when you know the question will you know what the answer means.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID 00JBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest is Tom Reilly. He is the author of The Protector, The Fall and Rise of Oliver Cromwell. Of course, we're getting into a different subject, man. He asked me a big question there. Answer's 42. No. What is the shape of God, what I believe God is? I don't know. I'm interested in your guys' take on it tonight. The phone lines are open. You can answer that question as long as I'm asking questions of our guest, Tom Reilly, tonight. You have Irish heritage or background? I do. And that's why I brought him on tonight, because I am so interested. Ireland is my dream place to go in Europe. To see mainly haunted castles. You know me. That's what I want to see. But just to connect to my heritage. I had a great-grandfather that migrated there, not that far removed. And I would love to know more. I wish I knew more about my own family's history. But I'm a fan of history, ghost stories, haunted castles, all that stuff, and open lines tonight. So call in, join the conversation, but let's go ahead and get back to our guest. All right. Thank you, Tom, for staying with us in the wee morning hours. I'm sure it is for you right now.
No problem. I'm wide awake. Trust me.
Yeah. So you were asking me that question, though. I guess what I believe the shape of God is. I guess what I believe God is. Is that was the question?
Yeah, it was, because you mentioned at one point, you mentioned a higher power, and that always intrigues me. About what way people think of what that power is. And again, I'm always curious to know what the answer is, because like we've mentioned about, my logical mind and so on, to me, I'm not there. I was conditioned as a Catholic, and I was taught all the things that a good Catholic should have been taught. But when I started to ask questions, because that's what I do.
Where you get in trouble.
Yeah, it's where you get in trouble, and it's just everybody gets in trouble when they ask those sort of questions. So things started to unravel for me, and it's unraveled to the point where I no longer am a believer, and that's the way a lot of Western Europe is going. Strangely, there are lots of Scandinavian countries, and even in the UK. I think the UK may become the first post-Christian society in this world in a few decades. And it seems to be people are a lot more skeptical to believe, what somebody might call fairy stories that have been taught, to people 2,000 years ago, that they don't really have the relevance that they had. Now, of course, you didn't go down that road. I mean, everybody has their own idea, but it's what is God? Is it? And we only have a certain level of intelligence to be able to understand it ourselves. Everybody has a different way of looking at it, but it seems to be always different to me. And what you described is quite similar to the way a lot of other people would have described what God is. But in my very logical world, and I don't fully understand how the Big Bang came about. I just know that they recreated the conditions that suggested it could. I think in the Hadron Collider, and so that's real. And then if you just take the story of evolution, that's how we evolved, and we're here. There's another significant point that I want to make as well, Jason, if you don't mind. One of the things that I like to kind of say when it comes to the Earth and the world and our place in the universe and our place in all of the galaxies, or whatever way it works, is if you go down to a beach anywhere, let's say I go down to my local beach and I pick up a grain of sand, and that grain of sand represents the Earth. Let's say that's the Earth. Similar to, do you remember the Men in Black movie where the cat had the universe on his
and
collar?
a little ball in his
Exactly, yeah. So let's say the grain of sand is the Earth. So if you pick up a handful of sand and you think, okay, what have I got here? I've got probably millions of planets. And then you look at the beach. This is my beach in Ireland, and you think, okay, that's I can't even say there's probably gazillions of planets, and that's only one beach. And if you go to beaches all over my country, and then you extrapolate that to the whole world, my point is, how in God's name can we have the temerity to suggest that we're the only ones with life?
Right. Well, I believe the Catholic Church knows we're not the only ones and has known for a long time.
Yeah,
that's been my theory.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they don't really tell us that, and it seems so dated to me as we get further and further into the 21st century. So I'm still searching, and my mind is still wide open. But it's just that everybody has a different version of God now. If you don't accept the God of the Old Testament or the New Testament, it seems to be very oblique to me. It's there's no real. And it's fine that everybody has that, and I think it's a great crutch to have that you've decided that this is how we exist. There's another suggestion, of course, that we're an experiment.
Simulation, the Matrix.
Yeah, exactly. All of that, and again, has Hollywood put that into our heads? If that screenplay hadn't been written, would we even consider these things?
I think we would. I think it's part of. I mean, there's great minds that consider these things because of the mathematical improbabilities of life existing as it is, and then just in you look at the theory of fractals and the way life repeats, and like the Fibonacci sequence. There's just things and clues that people point out that this could be a simulation. I'm not a simulation guy as much. But I believe in, the expansiveness of the universe and multiverse, that there's a lot of different probable things going on that would seem to logic improbable, but we don't even have a tidbit of understanding what reality really is.
And even that telescope, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was in the news a couple of weeks ago, where they could look back. Was it billions of years? As far as I remember, they almost went back. Is it 3 or 4 billion?
You talking about the new
Jim something telescope? I can't remember what the name is. Yes, I am. I'm talking about that. And even that, like as soon as they start talking about that, you realize, okay, they're not just looking into space; they're looking back in time,
right?
Because this is how they describe that. And I don't have the capacity to fully even understand that first.
When you're looking at stars, you're looking at back in time because that light takes so long to travel here. That star could be gone.
Yes, of course. By the time, that makes sense. So
deep thoughts by little Jason when I sat outside and looked at the stars as a little kid. As I thought that could be a dead star, totally gone. I thought of these things. I was a sci-fi geek as a kid. I loved Star Trek and Star Wars and all that stuff. So
you seem to have had a very interesting childhood, I have to say. And these are the things again that makes you the man that you are. And it's very hard. We all have our own identity, and we live by our opinions. This is the whole thing, and sometimes it's very difficult. And you would prefer to lie. I don't mean you. And people prefer to tell untruths as opposed to challenging their own opinions. And that's the way of the world. Because where are you then if your identity has cracks in it, and if it starts to crack, it's going to, and that can mean so much to different people. You could your mental health is very important. So, if you form opinions, and there's good reason for it, well, then you got to keep them.
I think that's one of the true evils of. I love the internet, social media. I get my show out with social media, but when I think the true evils of social media is identity, as people attach themselves so much with things now for their identity, and it becomes part of the structure they make on their social media lives. And now that's why politics is so just disgusting now. I don't care about either side. I don't want to even get involved in it because people are taking things so personally because they've made their identity around all these different things, especially like in politics and in style and who they are. And I think we're bigger, better spiritual beings than what we make ourselves out on Instagram or Facebook and the identities we think we are. That there's something deeper inside of us. And I don't want to see people turn. I want to see people turn away from organized religions. So much like the old school organized religions, and just
Yeah.
look to become more spiritual and ask the questions to themselves. Look, look within yourself. I'm not saying God is, you are little gods or anything. I'm not. Go back to your roots. If it is Christianity or Judaism or Hinduism or Buddhism or Muslim, go back to those roots. Discover it. Look at these things. What does God mean to you? Is there God? Ask these questions. As long as you're asking the questions, instead of taking a selfie and look at my newest hairstyle and oh my God, I'm saying, like, there's so much more to this wondrous world and this globe we're spinning on right now, and the miracle of life itself. The moon in the sky itself is improbable for the distance it is to have an eclipse. There's so many of these big questions we should be asking, and the wondrous things that are around us. And people are like, I'm on my phone. Oh, did they like my post?
That's
I want us to.
Said. Totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I take your point absolutely about organized religion, because if you investigate any organized religion, you realize that it's just men mainly who are making decisions about rules and regulations and dogmas that you need to
rewriting history.
Exactly, yeah, and it just depends on the times. The Catholic faith has had so many synods over the years where it just changes according to the times. Vatican I, Vatican II, all those things. So and I totally agree with what you're saying. Go out there, lie in a field, look at the sky, take it all in, and then start to form your
realize
own
life is a miracle.
Yeah.
To be here, to do these things is, as tedium as going to work every day or paying your bills and the stress of life is, this is a wondrous planet. This is a wondrous thing we're experiencing right now, and we have to try to smell the roses, I guess. Take a look, take it in for a minute.
Exactly, and enough people do that. When you spoke earlier on about communicating with the other side, because I believe that's something that you've experienced. That's a whole area for me that people really should focus on, because if there's there've been people throughout the world throughout time, but James Randi, and are you familiar with Darren Brown?
He's a psychic, I think, or he's not what you want to call
Go on.
I don't know if he's a psychic, but like a what do you call it? Like a mentalist.
Yes, he is. He's a mentalist, a seer, or whatever it is. But he there's a very good story actually about him because he was UK based. He's a UK guy. He's from England, and when he did a program, and again it's on YouTube, where he came to the States, and he wasn't really well known over there, and he convinced producers to put people in a room where he said he would. I don't know if you've seen this, but
I think I might have. Yeah.
Yeah, and he tells the audience, this is the viewers, before the program gets into the detail. He tells people that he's not going to be talking to anybody on the other side. He's not going to be communicating with them. It's going to be an act, and it's going to be him using his abilities. So you can see it happening now. He goes into a room, and they're a bit suspicious of him because he's got this lovely English accent, and he's a bit different to the way they talk. But very quickly, he hits on names. He hits on scenarios that are very, very unique. For instance, I don't know, he gets somebody called Doris, who a member of the audience, it's an unusual name. Yes, I know Doris. And then not only that, but it's the typical kind of thing where he says, yes, so Doris, she was big into candles, that. And she goes, yes. The subject goes, oh my God. So, and then she died on a motorcycle accident. And all of these things are how could he know this? Because it's impossible for him to know this effectively. This is the way people think. So he gets about 3 or 4 subjects, and he has them in tears, and they are completely convinced that he's talking to their dead relatives.
Yeah.
And of course, at the end, he says to them, no, I wasn't. I was using my ability to read you. And I don't even... Yeah, cold reading, exactly. But I suppose his point was, and my point is, that there are lots of charlatans out there who, don't and can't, but they use the same, these televangelists who have been found to have earpieces and,
smacking people with their coats. Demons be gone!
Yeah, exactly, yeah. How is that not real, And with they people fill out stuff before they come into the show, and there's lots of stuff. But, so this is what muddies the waters for people who are, you know, semi-cynical, that kind of go, okay, is this all just
Right.
you know,
That's why I hate that stuff.
yeah, of course you do. Yeah, you're in the business, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that's where it gets difficult for cynics, not just like me, but all over the world, to kind of say, okay, so this is just somebody who's just very clever, and this is why it's all shrouded in mystery. And this is why I love this thing. You know what I mean? But you
Yeah.
have had, you know, genuine communication experiences.
I
I
see.
suspect.
This is a reason like I want to be the guy that's like I am logic. I was a fan of Spock, you know, in Star Trek. It's
Yes.
all about logic and reason. I want to be Spock, but I've had too many personal experiences that there's a tendency for me to believe people when they tell me they have these experiences. One I've talked on the show is I held a picture of somebody who was deceased. It was a picture of them in their coffin. I had no idea what their name was. But I suddenly had all this. I'm not, you know, a regular psychic or anything like this, but I had this experience where I knew all this stuff about him, just like a deep knowing that he was an alcoholic. His kids didn't want anything to do with him. They had stuff left in the house that he hid from his World War II days, and I knew his name. I said his name's Bill. I wasn't trying. This all came out of me. It was just like a moment of weirdness, and I knew his first name, and then my wife and her friend were like, "What's his last name?" I knew his. I was like Eiler. It was Eisler. I was hearing in my head.
God.
That one experience, I think I had it to show me something on the other side. No, I would be involved in this years later to show me that people can do this.
Yeah, yeah. And you didn't. That didn't happen to you again. I mean,
No, I'm not that I've tried. And I wasn't trying then. I just was handed this photo.
Sure.
My wife
Yeah.
took me over to this friend's house just to go. They didn't tell me he was having all these issues. That it was haunted. And my wife wanted to see if I would know. She does this to me. And we get inside the doorway, and I go, "There's something here." Yeah. She goes, "He knows." And that's the whole reason they brought me over to meet the boyfriend of her friend, whatever, because he was having these issues. So he brought this photo album, and he handed me this photo. He goes, "This is the guy who owned the house," and he didn't tell me a name or anything. You know, just hand me this photo. I didn't even look at the photo book yet or anything. And I'm just holding it, and I said, "His name's Bill." He goes by, you know, his name's William. He goes by Bill. And I don't even remember. And the moment I said, it, I'm like, "Why did I say that?"
I know.
You know, it was a weird, really weird experience.
Everybody else, yeah. See, how do you harness that though? You know, this is the thing. If
Right.
You know, how like, because some people obviously can, and
Yes.
they, you know, take that and go and have very positive impact on the world. Because what better way to, you know, to be able to move on with your life, to know that those who have gone before you are doing well. You know, if that's what you believe, and what better, you know, vehicle to be able to, you know, imagine being able to do that, and imagine if you could harness that. Obviously you couldn't, because I suspect that you would have wanted to had you tried, but it came from, you don't know where it came from. And
Right.
you know,
I don't know how to control that or never recreated it again. I haven't really
Yeah.
tried, because there's a thing that, you know, when you say you're a psychic or a medium, there's a lot of expectation there.
Yeah.
And I don't think
yeah.
I could do that, because I wouldn't want to be wrong about something, or, you know, if I'm be false, I don't
Yeah.
know what I'm communicating with. Am I really communicating with somebody's deceased loved one? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I'm the constant agnostic to question everything. You know, I'm not an
I love it,
atheist,
yeah, I love
but I
it, yeah,
question
yeah.
everything. Was I communicating with him, or was it something else? Was it me collecting
know.
information from the collective unconscious, you know, or
Yeah,
the universal
yeah.
consciousness? I don't know.
But it must be wonderful, Jason, to think about people who actually are convinced that, and you know, the whatever way they get the information. It must be wonderful to be able to do that, you know, to be able to give all these people such solace, you know, because if the
Yeah.
information is coming through from wherever it's coming, you know, this is the whole thing. And again, you see, it's all oblique, it's all very ambiguous, you know, what
It's what's behind the veil. You don't know.
yeah,
you know?
that's right. And there's so many hit and miss. You know, you talked about cold reading. You know, there's a lot that miss. You know, and there's a lot. There are some that hit, and then you know, the seer or the psychic or the medium will be able to develop that. But for the cynic in me, I'm thinking, okay, he's just kind of guessing. It's amazing guessing, but he's just kind of guessing, and he's toying with people's emotions, you know. On occasion, obviously, it works.
He was doing it as an example, and I get exactly
Yeah.
why he was doing it. It's a good example to show people there is a thing. I've seen it. I've seen people do cold reading. It is a real thing, and some people
Yeah.
they're mentalists. They're able to
That's right.
go beyond the human. They can perceive things we don't. That isn't
Yeah.
psychic, but they just are constantly adding things up somehow in their head. I don't know how
Yeah.
how they
The
get to
kind of-
where they get.
No, it's the kind of thing that, though, if you meet these people in real life, I mean, if I met Darren Brown, I would just crap myself because I know he's looking straight into my soul, before I say anything. It's a kind of a Sherlock Holmes thing, he sees so many things. There are so many clues on my body and my eyes, that he can tell straight off the bat about me that other people would never see, and that's intriguing. And I mentioned James Randi as well. That's another thing that kind of, that whole idea. I think if the story behind him, I think he had put up $1 million to anybody who could prove in some way, however, whatever level of proof he wanted, that something
psychic phenomenon, supernatural, anything. He would give you $1 million. That's what he said.
That's
and
right.
I've had guests on here who said they did prove it, and he got out of paying them the money. I've had at least one guest on here. I won't say. Yeah.
Really?
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. I'm not questioning that, but I've never seen that anywhere.
I don't approve of that, but yes.
Okay.
But
well,
James Randi was an interesting character for sure.
Sure was, yeah, and that's and he's gone now, so you'd wonder.
He's got his answer.
He's got his answer exactly, yeah. But I just love him to be able to tell somebody what that answer is, and again, you would think if anybody was going to communicate, it was going to be him, or maybe not. Maybe he'd be the opposite. Maybe he just wouldn't bother, because he's fine.
That is the question. It's like people like Houdini and people who are skeptics or tried to really, or I wouldn't say Houdini was a skeptic. He had his own personal experiences, but he promised to come back to his wife. Some people say he did. There's a lot of mythology and lore to the Houdini thing about communicating. But did he? Did he ever come back and communicate?
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, and that's that's something. Again, I've had people close to me who've died, and in particular my dad, and that's something that he always said, that he'd come back and he'd tell us stuff, and of course he hasn't done, but and he hasn't done to any of us. So it's just that's the frustrating aspect of all of this. You have to be able to work it out for yourself, and maybe that's the lesson. Maybe the lesson is, okay, you'll find your place, and whatever that is, it's good for you.
Maybe the one movie proposed a reason. I know we're getting off topic, but I just like having conversations. But one movie proposed a reason to maybe why we don't have that ultimate answer. What was it called? It was The Discovery with Robert Redford. It was on Netflix. And in that, Robert Redford scientifically proves the afterlife. And it's got another premise to the story that I really love. But the main premise of the story I kind of didn't, was that everybody finds out that the afterlife's totally proven. He's proven it. And people start killing themselves
to get there.
And maybe but it is a proposed question, if we had ultimate proof, of there is another side, but if you look at the ghost stories of castles in Ireland and stuff like that, these are not great, afterlives. If they're stuck in a castle somewhere and they're falling to four pieces on the floor, it ain't the great. There's you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you totally, absolutely. And this is, is everything so negative about the afterlife? That's a wonderful example you just given me there, because if it was known to be as wholesome and as good, people would probably start killing themselves. They would no longer fear death. Everybody bloody fears death, and if you hadn't got that,
it's a driver in life to to live. I don't know what's going to happen, so I better just keep on working and feeding and keep going.
Yeah, long life, all that. But you mentioned the castles, and you mentioned Leap Castle earlier on.
Yeah, I really would. I've seen there's been shows that have gone there in the history of Leap Castle. I'm like, oh my god, it's like paranormal Disneyland to me.
It's it's a terrific place. It's privately owned, and you have to get a special. You just can't walk in. You have to. It's all by appointment.
I walk in. Hey, here I am.
Yeah,
very tourist.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing not to do.
Yeah, I know.
But look again. There's so much going on there. I think there's a priest who killed. A brother who killed his own brother, who was a priest. And there are spirits who walk through an open window and walk again out from in one window and out another window. Night, apparently, there's full broad daylight in the middle of the night. Light actually floods through these windows of the castle at night. And that's again, you're thinking, well, what does that mean? What does that represent? There are spirits. Apparently, there was a lady who was there. She was the wife of a Cromwellian soldier. Cromwell gets everywhere. Her name was Mildred Darby. And she reported the next day, and she was the first one to report it, but there was something heavy that was lying on her bed snoring And again, you could go down,
Oh.
you could go down the titillation road there, but we're not going to do that because that's, that's something that she was absolutely convinced, and that there's a monk who walks around the place, and she also said that he had a tonsure and a cowl, so that's how he would have been dressed, to be a cowl around his head and a tonsure on his head, and but he seemed to have. I'm just going to read what she said. She said, "Its lustrous eyes, which seemed half decomposed and looked incredibly foul, stared into mine." And that's what she saw, and this is what happens in Leap Castle. So you need to go there.
Yeah, it's a dream. Like, going anywhere in Ireland for me, I just would love to just be able to come one day. I hope one day.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we've got so many places. I think you would, you and I'm sure a lot of your listeners would love to come, and because I can't really get across to you, Jason, how incredibly fulfilling, how incredibly what the experience that you get when you're walking into these places, because it's the amount of people who lived in them before.
Yeah.
It's just the stories, and you can touch history. There's a place very close to Dublin called the Hellfire Club, and it's a great name.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's not the only. There's a number of different Hellfire clubs. Ben Franklin, was a part of the Hellfire Club. But the one in Ireland, yeah, that's kind of notorious.
Yeah, it's like a Masonic lodge, but it's all sorts of. And again, they would have worshipped the devil there. That's the kind of thing that has come down apparently as well. They, as some sort of a weird cannibalistic ritual, they ate a servant girl who was working for them. All these guys who were hunting. It's kind of a hunting lodge at the top of a mountain, and I can tell you, just I had an experience there that
really.
Well, it's only just in. I always think that I always put the caveat in that it's in my head, because I went into this place and I was just absolutely scared out of my wits. And I was a full-blown adult. But I tried to, logicalize it, if that's a word, afterwards, thinking, was that just my head? Or did something happen?
But if you're a logical person, why are you so scared? Why that feeling? Why do you have that feeling? No, it's a serious question. I've asked others that have had this experience.
Yeah. No, I'm only smiling because you're right, because it's an Achilles heel, because I don't know. Because like I spoke earlier about identity. My identity is that I'm skeptical and I want to be logical. So when there's a weak point found, I can't give you an answer, and I don't know. But I do know that I was very scared, and I often think, well, why? If the spirit world is out there, why? And again, is it Hollywood that has us thinking this, that it's going to harm us in some way? Why does it have to be? Why do we have to be scared? Why, when we, because all these Hollywood movies and all these castles are being advertised as scary because of the ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
But fundamentally, is as you talked about the Discovery and the Robert Redford film. Surely there's a hugely positive aspect to spirits and death and the ghosts and so on. Why does it have to be such a scary feeling? But that's what I absolutely got it. I can't deny it. Now, I didn't see anything. But it was just enough to be in the place, and sometimes a place can do that. Yeah.
There's places where bad things have happened, and people feel it. You feel it. I've had this experience. I was at, I've been at places, modern murder. I've been in a place where someone was beaten to death, and I didn't know it, but I led everybody in this place to this spot, and then told that spot you're looking at. That's where, and this was a modern murder. It wasn't old history, but he's like, this right where she was beaten to death. She was beaten to death right there. Everybody could feel it. There's, when bad things happens, it leaves a mark. Is that a spirit or is that residual energy? Human body's made of energy. We're an electromagnetic spectrum. What are we affecting around us reality wise? But these places record this. Some people believe this history or this feeling, or I mean, if horrible things happen in the Hellfire Club and the rumors of sacrifice and occult rituals, it's probably leaving a mark, and it's going to affect even the most skeptical person. It's going to feel it.
This is it, you see, and again, most of the older buildings in this country, like the castles and so on, would have those. But you touched on something really interesting there, because like, again, if you look at personal experiences. So so people come to these experiences with different conditioning, and and this is what really intrigues me, because there's no right and wrong. Do you know what I mean? There's no manual.
It's just experience.
Yeah, it's just an experience, and whether or not it's your first and only, and whether you continue to have those experiences, what does that depend on? And what are we saying here? If there is, let's say there is some sort of something driving human nature, as you mentioned, or whatever way you put it, is all of this preordained? Is the destiny already planned?
The future's always in motion. Another Yoda quote.
Exactly. And can you do anything to change that? And if you do, was that planned anyway? And again, the level of intelligence, some people just believe on the slightest bit of evidence, and my contention is, and I'm just like that. I just believe I like a nice evidential platform before I'll actually accept it.
Myself as well.
Yeah. Isn't that so important? Because there's so much out there,
That's why I do question everything. I have my experiences, and I continually question them all the time. We got somebody waiting on the phone line. He's always got great questions. We got Zach on the line. How you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm doing pretty good, brother, and I would definitely second a trip going on over to Ireland.
Yeah, let's go,
do
buddy.
An investigation.
Let's go.
Let's go we'll do an investigation together. I don't verbally provoke, but I'll light up.
We just got to get a glass of milk and put some sleeping agent in there and give it to my wife, because she's like Mr. T in the A Team. You're not going to get her on a plane unless you drive, and I'm not going without her.
Well, that's lovely.
Hey,
Sorry.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it, man. All right, so I got 2 questions tonight. I'll keep them as short as possible. Top of the morning to you, Tom. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Zach. Thank you very much. I'm very good. I'm very interested to know what your question is.
So my first question goes back to Oliver Cromwell. In your research that you have done, have you found any record of Oliver Cromwell maybe holding any of his subordinates accountable for any kind of historical atrocities or anything like that?
That's a good question.
And have committed?
Yes, is the short answer. Yeah, and there's a very good example of something that happened here in Drogheda in Ireland, when he brought over 12,000 men to basically subjugate the country, and he gave them very strict instructions when they arrived in Dublin. He told them that they weren't to interfere with any persons whatsoever unless they're in arms or office with the enemy, and that's a direct quote. And on the way from Dublin to Drogheda, 2 of his men stole hens and chickens from an old woman because they were hungry, and that was against his orders. So as an example, what he did was he hung the 2 guys and he petrified the rest of the army. Then he said, look, this is not something I'll tolerate, and this is what you have to cut out. So that's a pretty good example of him clamping down on somebody who committed an atrocity. Sorry, who committed a crime, not an atrocity.
That's a great example.
Yeah. So if he hung to, sorry, Zach, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was just following up on that statement right there that you had just said. Go on ahead, Tom. Go on ahead.
Yeah, no, so if they had transgressed and they took it further and they went to maybe into a war area and military domain, and they stepped outside it and they were to harm a civilian, or you see, we're talking here, the word civilian conjures up so many images, but it's a toddler, a baby, a teenager, a pensioner. It's not somebody in the military. So if they had done something like that, there's no question he would have come down on them very, very heavily.
Okay, cool. And my second question, really, I'd just like to get your following opinion on this statement. And this was told to me by a professor when I was in college and all that, because when I went to school, my study was education with a focus on history. I remember them telling me this once. When analyzing history, you cannot look at it from a 21st century perspective. Could you give me your opinion on that following statement?
Oh my God. Zach, that could be the name of my next book.
Right?
Yeah, look, there's absolutely no question. It's. We spoke about planets earlier on. It's like everything happened on a different planet back then, depending on how far back you go. But all of the circumstances that dictated life, you know, certainly when Cromwell was in Ireland, which was the 17th century, everything was so different. And like for instance, religion in those days absolutely pervaded every part of a human being's life. People wouldn't put on their shoes because they thought evil spirits were in the shoes. And this was, you know, there were no skeptics around then, just Jason, just for, you know, a very, very few. And if you were a skeptic, obviously, you know, you were probably put to death or put in prison. So yes, there's no doubt in my eyes that you can't judge from this distance. You would have to experience it, and only by you know, getting a time machine and going back to a particular period in history and maybe immersing yourself there for a decade, where you go some way to understanding. But you know, that's absolutely categorical. And can I just say that's a very good way to look at history. It's brilliant because we can't judge, and you can't judge. Certainly, you can't judge the subject of my book, Cromwell, with 21st century eyes, because that's a huge mistake to make.
Awesome. Well, those are all the questions that I had. Thank you so much, Tom, for answering my questions. I do greatly appreciate it. I love hearing everything that you're saying. If I ever get a chance to go over to Ireland by chance, you know, I'll meet you at the pub and I'll buy you a beer.
Zach,
There, no
I
problem,
love
my
you.
friend.
Thank you very much. You're very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night. Yeah, I mean, you can look at skeptics like Giordano Bruno. You know, I mean, they didn't end well. There were skeptics, but there was plenty of examples of why you just keep your mouth shut.
Absolutely, yeah,
You
because it
know?
was a life or death situation.
I don't think we're the center of the universe here. You know, okay, put them in, burn them at the stake. We'll prison them
Yeah,
for
yeah.
years, and then we'll burn you at the stake. Yeah,
That's exactly
yeah.
it,
There's
yeah.
plenty of reason for people to not, you know, voice their skepticism. Like, yeah, sure, we're the center of the universe. Yep.
Yeah. And you know, this is the whole thing about history, and Zach gets that. You know, that it's very difficult for people to actually look back and change your, you know, to adopt all the circumstances that were going on at the time. You know, and that's why we get so, you know, so many Irish people over here are extremely angry and still extremely angry with England for what they did. But you know, it's history, man. You know, it happens. Just kind of get over it.
Well, we've seen a lot of revisiting history lately in America. I mean, people are taking founding fathers off of things or changing names of schools because you know they were slave owners. I'm like,
slaves, yeah.
Nobody's perfect through the lens of history. You know, Thomas
Yeah.
Jefferson, you know, had slaves. I get it. He, you know, had children that were slaves. You know, he was probably, you know, but that's their time in history, and their morals are different than ours. And maybe they weren't perfect, but they were striving to be better.
Yeah,
You can see in the Constitution and what they were trying to set up in this country. These people, and yes, they were men, you know, were striving for something better. Maybe they weren't perfect and they owned slaves and they, you know, but again, we didn't live in their culture, their time, or their, you know, what they were perceiving or experiencing.
Absolutely, and then what you just said there, but you know, it's desecrating the statues and the symbols of the past. That I can't condone that at all, because it's a very
Right.
different area. You know, it's that's something that's been commemorated for whatever reason. It doesn't necessarily have to be glorified or celebrated, but it's commemorating, and it's commemorating either an individual or an event, and it's a historic event. So to link it now with you know, things that you don't agree with that happened at that time, and to tear down a statue, I mean, you're tearing down history, and
It's no different than, you know, in you know, Afghanistan, where, you know, when Taliban takes over and they go and destroy 1,000-year-old Buddhist statues. You know, I mean, it's, you know, we've been doing this for thousands of years as races and cultures, as human civilization. The victors write the history, and they go in and they destroy and change that history, and that's that. You know, the Library of Alexandria. You know, we have had human knowledge erased from this planet because of people and agendas and propaganda and religion. You know, it's a sad fact that we don't know our history. That's the thing. We don't know our total history. You know, I got interested in the Bible because I think there are clues to our history. I think it's been rewritten and retold, but there's clues in there. I believe in ancient aliens. I believe in our past we were visited, and there's evidence that we were influenced genetically, historically, culturally by something else.
Can I just ask you? So just again, this area to me, I just love this whole area. So like if again, we're probably all conditioned with the Roswell image of an alien, and something that again that's been in
Which is wrong. Most people's ideas of the Roswell alien is wrong.
Yeah. Okay, that's something that intrigues me. But you've also got the Close Encounters. It's a similar kind of big eyes alien type, But you talk about ancient aliens. I mean that does make sense to me in a way, because like I said before, how could we think that we're the only planet with life out there? But again, what I just love is for it not. It seems to be always in an arena where it's a bit crazy to me, because over here in Ireland, when we see, let's say, someone in the backwoods of America, they've either been abducted or they've had some sort of experience. You think to yourself, well, why is it somebody in the backwoods? Why is it, somebody that you just can't really kind of just, the credibility is not 100%, and why
is the backwoods like the Hicks of America? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. Why is it always there? Why is it not in full view in a main street?
See, I think that's a general. They see, like a lot of people in America over the many years have had that view about like people who say they've been alien abducted. That's changing because of people who've come out. Like I've had my friend Terry Lovelace on here. He was a lawyer, assistant attorney general or assistant attorney. I mean, he was, he had a full professional career before he ever came out. After he retired, he came out. He had a huge alien abduction experience, and throughout his life, but a major one. I mean, like physical evidence, and he's had physical X-rays of implants. There's people, Whitley Strieber, writers, people have come out, and and now we have the disclosure thing, so it's getting a little more talked about. I've had some experiences myself. I know others that have watched the show and called in have had serious experiences of abduction. So I think this is something that's been put in people's minds. Again, another way of maybe it's an agenda, maybe it's just the way things went, but putting it's just those backwoods people, it's just those Hicks. That was an American thought for a long time. That it's changing, I think.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting, because I don't think that's kind of it's not mainstream. Certainly isn't mainstream over here. So
I'm not saying it's mainstream yet. I'm not, but I've seen more openness to it now.
Yeah, okay, and that's and again, that's something that really should be publicized more. People should know about this. Because if
we have to compare notes to figure it out.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah. But if you've got somebody who's credible, and who gives a perfectly credible story, and the individual has got integrity, that's the 100% believable. That I just, I might just take those. I'm going to replay this and Google those people who you've just
Terry
mentioned.
Lovelace, Incident Devil's Den. That's a great book to read. He gives his most honest take on his experiences. And it might be crazy to people, but Terry just tells it as he's experienced it. And Whitley Strieber is pretty way out there too, but I feel like he's tried to tell it as he's experienced it, as crazy as it is. I've had other guests on that have had abduction experience. It's a whole fascinating scenario, and as my wife quotes, it's scary as hell. My wife does not fear ghosts. She does not. She's got a witchcraft thing that she does, because she says stuff follows us home, and she'll like ward the house and keep it out. That stuff does not scare her. I've had my experience where I was attacked by something, not a ghost, but something supernatural. I can get scared about it. But the alien thing, abduction thing, I'm trying to figure out. But my wife says it scares the hell out of her, because I have experiences now, and it scares the hell out of her. She's like, the whole of it. She's like, she saw a UFO, she's going to hide.
Well, in fairness, it's probably a world that we know so little about, and that we don't, we'd never fully understand. So, and again, like, it's just, I can only go back to movies, because all these things, of
course,
movies that have come out of Hollywood, you think, okay, is that what's going to happen?
I quote movies on here all the time. It's part of the culture. It's part of the experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that's so interesting. But can I just ask you now, in recent years, so when you were younger, you had you had experiences that were very real and so on. Has anything happened to you, in the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So it's reoccurring. So something happens on a...
I have weird experiences still. I see
Yeah.
stuff still that normal people don't see, and I have experiences, yes.
Okay.
And enough to keep me still like. I mean, I still question everything. I still question all my experiences up to the green floating head, but
Yeah.
I know they're real. I know I've experienced them, and I still have experiences.
Yeah, well, you see, that's the thing. Like, if you've only had one or two, they would be consigned to the past, and it wouldn't be such a huge deal. But if you continue to have them, you know, that what does that say? That says something. And this is why I'd love to have one. You know,
I know.
And
I get that.
and
I have friends like you that
Yeah.
haven't had an experience, and I
No,
mean they're
and
open-minded like you are.
Yeah, and you
know,
can't
but
force it, you know, because you just
no,
can't
you
force
can't.
it. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that I'm not special? That you're
No.
special? Oh, yeah, exactly. It doesn't mean that. It can't mean that. You know, maybe I'm the special one because I'm not having the experiences. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, look at it this way. Deep Thoughts by Jason Bland. If you're the reincarnation of Oliver Cromwell, you were a Puritan, you had this religious thing, you know, you have this deep inside this past, past life or whatever. Look at this. You come to this life, that's not they don't want you to go down some religious path, or you maybe if you had this experience, you would suddenly like join a cult. I don't know, like it's
No,
not the
that's
right
brilliant.
time for you. You need a whole other experience. Like you need to change the history about Oliver Cromwell. That's your purpose here right now. That's your school.
Absolutely. There are people listening to this, Jason, I'm sure, and what they're saying is, oh my God, can you not see it, Tom Reilly? This is the whole reason why you're here. You're here to exonerate that poor man who,
Right.
So many things were leveled at him.
It could be you're connected to him in a past life, and it's possible.
I know, and look, I get that, but again, my cynical mind would go, well, how is that? How is that possible? How scientifically is it possible? Because nobody can answer that, because there is no scientific explanation for reincarnation. It's just you have to take a leap of faith, and that's the case in so many.
There's a lot of there's people that have done really great research on this. I'm totally slipping their names. Some real famous people. My brain cannot think about it this late at night that have done some incredible case studies of reincarnation of children who've claimed as born. My son, he said, "I chose you," and remember, I told you I saw him years before he was born.
Wow.
I saw him years
You
before
did
he was
say
born.
that,
It was
yeah.
I was supposed to be moving out of my parents' house, and I saw him. We
Yeah.
got somebody on the line. I don't want to keep him too long because I don't know if he ever has to pay long distance bills, because I think it's Al from South Korea. Let's see. Is this Al?
Hey, yes, absolutely. How you doing?
Hey, bud.
안녕하세요.
Hey, good to hear from you.
Hi, sir. I got a question for you.
Sure.
March 2004. Was that a big event for Crawley?
I'm sorry. Would you just repeat that question again?
Okay. The month of March, or 2004. I'm sorry, 1904. There we go. 1904 March. Go ahead.
Is this?
Sorry,
you
Jason.
said Crowley? Are you talking about a Lister Crowley?
Yes.
Oh, we haven't gotten into
Are
that
we
subject
talking
yet.
about the same Crowley?
No. We've been talking about Oliver Cromwell. About 300 years before that. Lister Crowley is a whole interesting
I'm so
subject. I think
sorry.
you heard. Well, you probably heard us talking about Hellfire Club, which there's a lot of similarities.
Yes, I
to
heard
what Lister-
Hellfire. And
Yeah.
I started thinking about. That's where I got off track. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. It's good to hear from you.
That's
Al.
okay. No problem.
It's late for us and early.
Oh
early
man,
morning
it
for you,
is.
right?
It is It's 2:20 in the afternoon, and it's pitch dark out here.
Oh, jeez.
We're in the second. It's called Jangma. I think I'm saying that right. And it's basically Korean for rainy season.
Oh yeah.
So it's the monsoonal season with a vengeance.
Oh man.
Well,
Lister Crowley is a whole interesting subject, though. I could talk about.
Yeah, sorry, Jason. Just shows how widespread your show is. If we're going to South Korea, I think that's just incredible.
I'm very honored always when Al calls in from South Korea.
He's global. Remember when Art used to say coast to coast?
Coast to coast.
And you're
from the high desert.
And you're all 25.
I'm just disappointed I can't give you an answer. Yeah, I'm so sorry I can't give you an answer to the question, but it's not my area.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all right.
Well, let me throw this at you then, since we're talking about ghosts and stuff like that. Do you ever notice we never see any like Roman ghosts, like centurions? It seems like it's only as far back as like 1,000 years is how much a place can be haunted. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I have you been to England?
Yeah, it's a lot older than that.
Yeah.
No, I have not.
Yeah, they'd probably tell you in England that there were lots of Roman ghosts and lots of Roman locations where ghosts have been seen. So it's probably just something that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
There's a famous there's a famous place where they seen countless times Roman soldiers. It's like an old street. Oh, I'm trying to think of it where they've seen
Yeah.
Roman soldiers. My brain's like not working tonight, but there are. I was going to mention that there's definitely accounts of Roman soldier ghosts.
Yeah, there are.
Is it ghost though? Is it
my
residual replay? That's the question. You know.
There you go. Yeah, that's actually the question I had, because like you said, if that's like they're conscious, Mike. In fact, I think Art used to say about that. It says, "My God, I can't think of a worse hell."
The replay.
But maybe it's just kind of
right.
like a residual replay or something like that. And I did have a paranormal experience, and it was cognitive. It was cognitive to the fact it was trying to do some poltergeist stuff, and I yelled at it.
Is this the hotel?
And it didn't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
exactly
one.
there. It stopped. I mean, it stopped dead in its tracks.
Wow.
Not maybe it wanted the fear. Go ahead.
No, we were listening. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just the whole idea of the Christmas Carol, the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol movie, where all these souls, Jacob Marley has come back to visit. Can't remember Scrooge, and you see they're all they've got mangles and chains around them, and they're all kind of floating in air, and they're looking to get to their destination, and that's a very scary thing. Because you think, is this what's going to happen after death? Are we going to go into some sort of hellish purgatory, for the want of a better word? That scares me.
Well, yeah. Dickinson actually said that line in a story. Is this the future as it will be, or is this the future as it can be?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. Yeah. Poltergeists are also scary too, and thankfully I haven't had an experience at all like that. But I can imagine. I've seen doors open, as I say, in the castle, and things move, and I hear things. But unfortunately, I always just put it down to something natural as opposed to something supernatural.
Yeah, well, I've seen poltergeist activity, and sometimes it just does not make sense. Like, why? Yeah. Okay, like one. When I worked inside the command post, we were like deep underground. I mean, deep underground. It's about 3:00 in the morning. Every morning, we had a 3-tier calendar. Like the previous month, the current month, and the next month. Like one stacked on top of it, and it's on a little cardboard fixture. And the whatever would start swinging the damn thing back and forth, like a pendulum clock. And I'm thinking like, okay, you're a ghost, and that's what you're gonna do,
Yeah, that's a very good statement to make, actually, because I always ask the question, why do poltergeists do that sort of stuff? So is so that's what you're gonna do? That take your best shot and that's it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen to the rest of the show. You have a wonderful evening, gentlemen.
Thank you, Al from South Korea. Have a great night or a good afternoon.
Bye-bye.
We got to go to our last commercial break, but have you seen the show Ghosts from the BBC? I like the BBC original version, but they have an American version now too. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
That you should see that. There's a BBC version that's the original. I really love, and it takes place in an actual. I want to say it's like 1600s, 1400s mansion. I can't think of the name of the real mansion now. But in it, a woman can see the ghosts. She's able to see and hear them. And there's ghosts from different, from the troubadour time to, modern. There's a hippie ghost that died from a bear attack on the property to a scout leader or something like that. He has an arrow in his neck to a politician who died with his no pants on because he was in the middle of an indiscretion. It's hilarious. If you want to think, these people, it's the guys from Horrible History.
Okay, I'll check.
They
that
made
out.
the show. You should see it. It's hilarious, especially from it. There's a lot of history in there too. It's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, we got to go to our last commercial break. We'll continue and keep the phone lines open. When we come back from a commercial break, we'll open up the phone lines back. So just wait to call in until then. But we're going to go to commercial break and come back to our guest Tom Reilly, author of The Protector: The Fall and Rise of Oliver Cromwell. Is this Oliver Cromwell's reincarnated person right here? No. I know. I couldn't help it. I swear to God. I was looking at the picture today. I'm like, maybe. I think about these things. Deep thoughts. When we come back from this short commercial break.
Intercepted the transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDeath.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're gonna go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college, I've got a family to support, and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from Talkstream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do Voices from Beyond, the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up.
Do,
Hooray! He gone.
You're listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBland00 or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight's guest has been Tom Reilly. He is the author of The Protector, The Fall and Rise of Oliver Cromwell. So we've gotten into history, we've gotten some ghost stories, we go down a lot of different paths. I got somebody waiting on the line here. We'll get to your phone call in just a second. But I just love having conversations with other people from different parts of the world. It's an honor to be able to just talk to somebody in Ireland. We've got to love technology for that, right? And across the pond, be able to talk to you. You guys get to hear us, and we get to talk about ancient Irish castles that are haunted, right? You ever see that movie High Spirits? I don't think that was an Irish castle, I remember. But in that was a ghost. We were talking about residual hauntings. Remember the ghosts were replaying their death scene? It was, what was the actor? Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson, very young Liam Neeson, and I can't remember the actress's name. He murdered her, and they were reliving that over and over again until, what was his name from Police Academy? I forget all these names this late at night. Unwakes them from their residual death scene, and then shenanigans happen. It's a great movie, High Spirits. Check it out. But I've always wondered this since I was a kid. Are these ghosts really ghosts, or is this just something recorded, replayed, or are these ghosts being forced to relive something over and over again? Like Art Bell used to say, that would be the ultimate purgatory hell, to relive your death over and over again. Deep Thoughts by Jason Bland, or Jack Handy. We've got a lot more to get to in this little bit of time we got left, and we've got somebody waiting online, so let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Did you ever see that movie, High Spirits?
No, I heard you talk about it there. It sounds intriguing. I know Liam Neeson. He's obviously Irish, but I've never seen the movie, no.
Yeah, it was Liam Neeson. It was very young Liam Neeson, and what was the guy's name? Oh, hold on. I got to take care of stupid spam crap in my chat room. Sorry about that, guys. Don't have Jamie or Rob here to monitor that tonight. Yeah, it was Liam Neeson. I can't remember the girl from, was it Mermaid? And what's his name? Daryl Hannah. And, what is his name from Police Academy and Cocoon? I can't think of it. But it's a comedy movie from back in the day in the 80s that I loved. Again, another movie to do with, like, the afterlife and ghosts and all that stuff that always fascinated me as a kid. It made me think, like, do ghosts just replay these death scenes? Are they forced to relive this over and over again? You wonder that with a lot of the ghost stories that come from these castles, it's a lot of times a replayed scene. We do have somebody on the phone line I want to get to before it gets too late. We got an 860 area code. Who do we got?
Hello, Jason?
Hello. Yep, it's Jason. Who do we got?
Yeah, Azariana. I haven't called in a while.
I haven't heard. How you been, Azariana?
Oh, pretty good, Jason. Pretty good. The movie High Spirits, there was Peter O'Toole.
He was
the drunk
caretaker,
and
Gutenberg.
Whatever. Daryl Hannah. Steve Gutenberg was the American.
Yes.
You're a
and
genius.
you got the others, Liam Neeson and Daryl Hannah.
And what's her name from National Lampoons? National Lampoons, too. The wife from Chevy Chase and National Lampoons, she was in it, too. She was Gutenberg's wife. It's a hilarious movie. You should see it.
Yeah, it was. But I have a couple of questions for Tom, if he can answer them or give me information on them.
I'll do my best.
I was wondering. Hello, Tom. How are you tonight?
Hi. Is it Ariane?
Ziriana.
I beg your pardon.
Right.
I'm good, Ziriana. How are you?
Good, sir. I was wondering, with all the history and spirits in castles or all over the place where you are they do they ever move on, or like residual? Do they keep repeating? Will they ever move on? That was my first.
Maybe
question.
they get reincarnated.
or move on to wherever they're supposed to go to.
Yeah. So that's a really very good question, I have to say. And what that does is it makes me question as well, because even in the castle that I operate in, we have the same ghost and spirits who's been haunting there probably for a good 150 years. And the short answer is, from my experience and people who've seen, had encounters with this white lady, is that she's still there. She still exists in that interpretation of the word. And I would suspect that if you take, the same idea and you apply it to castles all over Ireland, I think, to be honest, there's probably an element here where the owners of the castle, or the whoever is telling the story, they don't want the ghost to move anywhere. So whether they
Right.
have, so that would be shrouded. We like to tell the ghost story, and it would be a retrograde step for the spirit to move on to wherever she was going. But I would be inclined to think that if they did, or if they do, you just might not find out about it. So again, I just can't be sure that they have moved on, or they will move on, because it kind of takes away the magic from certain buildings, and people would just prefer to tell you, oh yeah, no, they're still here, but who knows whether they are or whether they're not.
All right, thank you. My second question is, I'm fascinated with the Cromwell, almost identical, and I was wondering if you had looked into it, that maybe you were related to this Cromwell, and somewhere down the line, because it's rather. It's uncanny, the similarities, and that was my question.
That's an excellent question, and it's well, uncanny is probably as strong a word as I've had applied to the likeness. No is the short answer. We do know, and mainly because in terms of investigating any link, we do know that the relations of Cromwell still exist, and they would be living in the UK now. And I think they're called Cromwell Bush now, Bush. So they've become double-barreled. In fact, one of the royal family was also directly related to Oliver Cromwell. I think Princess Michael of Kent was that particular lady. And so we would be very familiar with who is directly related and who isn't. I just know that my ancestry wouldn't go close. I'm very Irish, and there's very little Irish DNA in Cromwell's line. So, but if you take away the natural and you put in the supernatural, there's a possibility, of course, that I am him. But there's no direct relation. No, I'm so sorry to spoil that one.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. And I hope
bother.
you have a great morning, or early morning or afternoon, whatever time it is.
It's
over there across the
6:40 in the morning. But thank you very much, and the same to you. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you,
Well,
Zariana.
thank you, sir. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Jason.
Bye-bye.
All right, we got another. It looks like somebody else is trying to call in here. We got another person on the line. I'll try to take the calls I can before we leave here. Everybody, I just called somebody here. Let me see. Let me call that person back, and I got somebody else on the line, I think. And we got, I think it says William on the line. Who do we got on the line? Hello, you there? William? I think it says William, but I'm not sure. Sometimes I get the name wrong. If you're on the phone line, say something. Going once. You there? I got somebody else on the other line. 267 I got on hold, and then I got one that says William, and I won't say the last name. If you're not William, that's fine. Just say something. If you're on the phone line, say something. 267, you hold on. Oh, I'm getting
Hello?
Hello, getting a little echo. Turn your device off in the background.
I think I got two calls going on at once. I don't know. I called like those numbers.
Oh, here, let me hang up on one. Okay,
All right.
there we go.
You can hear me good now?
Yep. Who do we got? Who's calling in?
Jason.
Your name's Jason?
Indeed.
And what's your question for our guest tonight?
So I've been watching the show for like a good bit, you know. And you know, me and my friends have been like pretty like loyal viewers.
Okay.
And like, I was just wondering if you wanted to fuck.
And that's what I thought. People with no lives.
Well handled.
Yeah. I don't know why they waste their time. I don't know.
Take it off on that.
I know they're weird. But you know,
it's a live show.
That's what Block's for. That's what happens with a live show. It's all right. Let me see here. Sorry, just block.
No, take your time.
Always try to catch them and block them. I had a feeling that's what it was going to be, but I like to keep my lines open like Art Bell did. I don't have a screener. And even if I could afford a screener, I wouldn't want somebody to judge, who can call in. But, when you do that, you take a chance of getting people with no lives and pathetic losers to call in. And,
yeah.
I don't know why.
That wasn't the first time.
Anyways, so, I mean, one of the things we didn't get into, too, I mean, we talked about banshees and pukas and stuff. I always felt like the Irish are, they're deeply into the mystical as a culture.
Yeah.
They have so many different, there's always creatures and myths for different cultures and stuff, but the Irish have a lot. And you get into the fairies, and it's like they were in touch with some other realm or perception of a realm that other humans in history haven't had.
Yeah, I think there's several ways of looking at this, and I do agree that there's an element of our folklore that has us like this. There's we've got lots of legends and myths, and again, you're taught all these things at school. I could mention names now, but they're not going to make any sense to you. There was a mythical Irish hero called Finn McCool who used to throw massive stones across the country, and there's Dermot and Grania, who were two again mythical creatures, and the children of Lear. There's a lot of stuff that it's like when you're educated in the Irish educational system, you're told these things, and you can't really differentiate at that young age what's real and what's mythical. So maybe that's a lot of the reason why we have this sort of connection with our ancient past and dipping into those things. I also feel sometimes that when you talk about you mentioned leprechauns earlier on in the show, and it isn't a huge leap here to talk about a leprechaun and a fairy, and that whole area. Again, that's another area that interests me greatly. I don't know if you know the guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan
Doyle.
Yeah,
exactly, he was interested.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah, and he's a very clever individual. He's to all intents and purposes, he should be reasonably sane. So he investigated a lot of that, and there are a lot of images that he investigated, and a lot of images have come down through the years that you're kind of looking and thinking, okay, what the heck am I looking at here? But in Ireland today, I can tell you that most people are very cynical about that. It does depend on where you come from. There's a kind of a difference between maybe an urban background and a rural background. And, myths and traditions tend to be much stronger in rural backgrounds. Maybe it's to do with the simplicity of life, or however, it's not so, full on, or you're not maybe as exposed to technology. I mean, it's in my recollection, I'm 62. I remember when we only had two channels on TV, So that's all you had. You didn't have much else. So you had to entertain yourself in other ways. So, that's when your imagination would come into play. And that's where maybe that's also a factor, I would suspect, about the way the Irish think and are, because you have to do a lot of filling in the gaps, filling in the gaps with your head. This is how you
Right.
entertain yourself. So yeah, but I've been asked on occasion about leprechauns. To me they don't exist, and it's only something that we sort of highlight on St. Paddy's Day, which is a big occasion around the world.
See, I've always wondered about. We got somebody else want to get to the phone call before we leave, but I've always wondered. And Ancient Aliens does make this leap of thought, but like some of the stories of fairies and stuff, and the involvement of like people getting abducted by fairies. There's some very alien abduction stuff, similarities between those old stories of fairies and aliens. I've always thought was interesting. We do have somebody else that's been trying to call in. 910 area code. Who do we got?
Hi guys, this is Eddie here.
Hi. What's your name? Eddie?
Hi. Very nice to meet you guys. My first time I've ever called in, so I'm a bit nervous.
Oh, you're all right. Nothing to be nervous about.
I guess I had a I had a question regarding my mother who passed away. The day she died, in the very next day when I woke up in the morning, I heard her voice talking to me, but I know I was awake when I heard her. My brother tells me that it was my brain playing tricks on me, and it's because it was such an emotional, it just happened so recently. So I guess my question would be, do you think it really happened? Did I really hear my mom's voice? Would be my question, if it's possible.
I'm going to let Jason answer this one.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to deal with a chat room issue with the frickin' spam bots right now. Hopefully it's blocking them, but they're just going nuts. Oh, God. So many people. But my answer to that is trust your gut in that experience. Because these are very personal experiences, and they're my favorite to hear from people. I mean, there is a point that your brother is making that's true, that people do experience kind of like a hallucinogenic state in between that when you're just waking up, or they hear noises or voices that aren't there. That is, there's a neurological reason for that. But for you to hear your mother's voice and feel that connection, I think you were experiencing something.
But from my point of view, yes. Sorry.
I was so scared when I heard her voice. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Eddie. Go ahead. You go.
When I heard her voice, I was so scared. I was so scared when I heard her voice that I was just afraid. That was the first time I was actually afraid, when I thought my mom was there. But
was it not? Can I just ask you,
down
Eddie?
the road, I've been praying that it would happen again, but it's never happened.
Yeah. Can I ask you, just as a matter of interest?
That's the only time I've ever heard her voice.
Our guest has got a question for you. Hold on, Eddie.
Sorry, yeah, no, just saying that what I think what Jason said there is very profound, and I think that if it's if you believe, it's down to you, and if you believe that it was your mother, then I think it's down to the individual. And what surprised me there is that you just mentioned that you were scared. Did you in any way, and the fact that you were hoping that it would happen again, did you in any way regret not having a positive experience, or why did you feel scared?
Well, like I said, it was like the very next morning after she passed. I left the hospital at 12 a.m. I woke up, the sun was up, it was like 8 or 9 a.m. and I heard her talking, but it wasn't to me. It was like she was talking to somebody else, but I could hear her voice. It was like clear. I knew it was her. I told my brother about this, and then he's telling me, it's impossible.
Yeah, to me,
a dramatic experience, and
yeah, I just love the whole idea of being able to hear somebody who's just died. That would be very comforting to me. But I get that maybe it wasn't so much for you.
Well, at the time, I think a lot of people have that fear experience when they're touched by something from the other side. I've had a lot of people tell me these experiences. The only paranormal experience they'll have is this kind of experience you had, Eddie, where a loved one somehow reaches out, or they see or hear them or smell them or feel them around them. And sometimes it's no fear at all, and other times there is fear because you're being touched from the other side, something you don't understand.
Yeah.
That makes sense to you?
Yes, sir, it does. Well, that was my question, and Mr. Tom Reilly, I thank you for in listening to you guys since it started, and it's been a great conversation, and thank you for having me in my phone call. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Eddie.
you
You're
for
very
calling
good.
in.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Have a good night, guys.
You too. I always
You
love
too.
new callers that aren't dips like the last one. That's it for phone calls. I got other people trying to call in. We're almost at the end of the show. Well, the one thing is, what I didn't get to ask, though, you wrote this book, The Protector, The Fall and Rise of Oliver Cromwell. You wrote it as fiction. Why did you decide to write it a fictional novel?
Well,
It's
mainly
just a historical.
It's an excellent question, yeah, because I've already written historical books that are in an academic context, and one of them was called Cromwell, An Honourable Enemy. This isn't I'm just kind of not advertising them. I'm just sort of saying why I wrote, so the other one was called Cromwell Was Framed. But there's only a certain amount of people who would read those, if you can appreciate that, Jason. They would only be maybe, college students or somebody who's kind of half interested in history. And they're the books that actually contain the evidence that in Cromwell's favour. But I want to get to the masses, and I want to get to people who read fiction and who would never pick up a history book. And there's an element of, I've put sex in there, I've put, intrigue in there, I've put redemption, all of the things that should make up a very good
Well, we should
story.
make it probably a really good story, the real story,
Yeah, and it
We
is the
knew
real
it.
story. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because his life is fascinating. He came from nowhere, within 11 years, up to the age of 43, he had made no impression whatsoever on the world. And then, in fact, he had lost his property and was, he had come from gentleman status to yeoman status. And he wasn't really making any of it. And then suddenly the war broke out, and he found that he had an incredible ability and capability to manage men. So that's what his life is, a real rags to riches. It's like, log cabin to White House. That's exactly what happened. And
Yeah.
that's how,
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So that's why I weaved, I call it faction, by the way, not fiction, just
Faction?
yeah.
Yeah, I like
It's
that.
a new word I've invented. Yeah.
But I like books like that. I like books that include history in them and, have elements, at least the elements, try to get as much of the history as possible, into the book.
Absolutely.
To
His
teach people
whole
stuff.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea behind this, is to get the message out to other people, more people, and his life is as it happened in the book. So it's mostly fact, to be honest, just embellished with conversations that I imagined and situations that I've embellished, but only slightly. But it is
to be a fly on the wall in history and be able to actually hear the conversations would be so cool.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of time travel, and boy, be
Yeah.
interesting to have a time travel machine and just travel back then and see how people really lived. Because like I said, I'm a fan of time travel, like Doctor Who and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, when you see it, there's always part of your mind is like, yeah, but is that what it was really like? What would it be
yeah.
really like to live in those
Yeah.
times?
That's
Probably
so true,
really
yeah.
dirty.
Well, yeah. Oh, no question about that, yeah. And also, there's another situation as well that I've often been accused of. Like a lot of people don't believe anything that I've written about this. So, if you did actually take a time machine and go back, people are so entrenched in their opinions over here that they still wouldn't believe, even if they saw it with their own eyes. This is a huge story here in this country. That it's only simmering just below the surface. That Cromwell is just the same as mentioning the word Hitler or Osama bin Laden or one of those tyrants. Even these days, Putin. So it's
Right.
It still raises the
Fake
hackles.
news.
Fake. I could have sworn Donald Trump had come into the room there, man.
No, my horrible Trump impression. But that's the thing. We're still dealing with nobody trusts any narrative or anything that's being put out by our own media nowadays. Let alone the history of victors that's been written. We should question everything in a sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's
yeah,
always
totally
an agenda
agree.
behind the story being told to you half the time.
Well, I can tell you that I over here in Ireland, I think it's a little different, to be honest. I know you're totally immersed in it over there, but it is a little different here. We tend to believe our national broadcaster, and we believe our newspapers. In the main, we do. There are very few, conspiracy theorists over here who think that we've been fed a line.
Yeah. Well, and here it's not. I'm saying it's just like you have two different sides that don't believe, and there's two different. You got
I'm familiar
MSN and
with
Fox
Fox
News.
News.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like there's two different sides that spin their own narratives. You know, we're in
Absolutely,
a
yeah.
land of illusion now. It's
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
times we live in. You know, we don't have the Walter Cronkite that everybody just trusts. You know, the
It's
trusted
so
voice of
true.
news.
You
We don't
watch
have
the-
that anymore.
No. You watch the way America is going, and you think this is. It seems to me, to us, anyway, like a retrograde step. How could such a thing be possible? And it's becoming more divisive as the time passes. You know, the Republicans absolutely can't stand the Democrats, and vice versa. And there doesn't seem to be any ground for compromise anywhere. Whereas in this neck of the woods, compromises happen. You know, there are arch enemies here who have in the north of Ireland who have sat down and
Right.
agreed. Yep, you know, it's a big deal. They've killed each other over here.
Yeah.
You know, for the last 30 years. Well, up until sorry, not for the last 30 years, up until 30 years ago. You know, and
Gotta
they've
think it's
managed
been
to-
that long already.
Yeah,
What is it,
1999.
99 that they it's 99.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, you're tuned in, man. I'm very impressed.
Well, I know a lot about a little, a little different things. You know, saying I'm not an expert on anything, but I catch
Yeah.
little things here and there and that pique my interest. And the IRA and everything that we went through up until '99. You know, I'm a fan for the little dogs, underdogs. You know, all the fight, and I have my Irish heritage, but it's
Yes.
but the violence and all that. You know, thank God that there has been logical reason and people put violence to the side.
Absolutely, yeah. They can't. This is the problem. You see, you it's such an explosive and an incendiary topic. I mean, even to the point where because I'm a defender of Cromwell, I've had death threats.
Right,
You know?
I bet.
Yeah.
I wondered. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm sure because they use Cromwell, I'm sure, as a rally cry. You know,
Yeah,
like, hey, he
big-
committed genocide. You know,
That's
I mean,
right.
it's the same thing they're doing here now with I'm not ragging on Black Lives Matter, but it's taking history and using it as a rally cry.
Yeah. And this is the thing. I mean, you know, you can record history and you can have it there as a documented evidence, but you can also be inspired by it. And you know, over here, this is one of the things that we are inspired by because I suppose we've played the victim, you know, in terms of our relationship with the UK for so long, you know, and that's something that's Cromwell fits that bill as the monster that we all love to hate. Everybody needs a bogeyman, you know, or a boogeyman as you
Yeah.
guys call it. And you know, this is who Cromwell is, and this is the bill he fits. So we hate him, and I'm defending him. You know, I mean, probably if there's anybody Irish listening to this, they're going to be disgusted with the kind of things I'm coming out with. You're taking it for granted because I've written books and stuff, but you know, trust me, this is not a popular opinion to take.
I bet. Yeah, I bet it isn't. But more power to you for getting to the facts, even if it's reincarnated, inspired. I don't know,
Yeah.
but what I'm
Yeah.
saying is like let's just like throw all the emotion, everything around. Let's just get to the history. What is real? What is documented? What can we really truly find out? What happened, and leave all the emotion aside about
Yeah.
it. That's what true historical perspective should be. And
Absolutely, and even if it
but
is,
there's
I mean,
agendas.
Yeah, there are agendas all the time, and like I get a lot of online abuse. I mean, there are a lot of people who won't talk to me anymore because a lot of people think I'm crazy. But you see, what I think I'm doing is I'm righting a wrong. This is this guy has been the victim of a huge historical miscarriage of justice. The verdict of history was that he was a monster, and I just don't believe that. And I think that history needs to be corrected, and effectively that he needs an apology for it staining his reputation all this time, because he didn't kill civilians, and he made a very strong attempt to keep them away from the battle. Despite the fact that it was an arbitrary activity to be engaged in, and I'm sure there was collateral damage and people would have died who wouldn't have died if the battle hadn't been going on. But he made a huge effort to keep them out, and unfortunately he's been the one who's been accused of civilian atrocities, and that's just so wrong in my book. Even if I am Irish, and I'm very proud to be Irish. I'm wearing my Irish t-shirt, by the way,
Yes.
So I just wanted to make that clear.
Well, Tom, it's been an honor to have you on the show. Everybody check out The Protector, The Fall and Rise of Oliver Cromwell, his book. You can find it on Amazon, correct? All the different resources right there. You can find it.
All good books.
Tom, one day maybe I'll get to go to Ireland. I'll get to visit. You can show me a castle or two.
I'd love to, Jason. You really should come here.
Yep, like I said, just got to drug my wife and get her on a plane. But
I know. Take a boat.
yeah, or a long boat ride, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, that's it for the show, guys. We will be back next week with UK clairvoyant, another one across the pond, Maurice Amador, if I said that right. Well, next Sunday, same bad time, same bad channel, but that is it for the show. Like I said, we'll be back next week. Thank you to everybody who shares out the show, and keep telling your friends about Paranormal Soup, an open place and forum where we can discuss the weird, the unusual, strangeness of this wonderful world that's spinning around us all the time. And, no judgments, open place, and if you want to come here, waste your time calling in like the jerk did a little bit ago, you can, but I don't know why. But thank you to all you that do call in and have great calls. Zach called in, Eddie that called in, Al from South Korea, Ziriana, thank you for your calls tonight. Wonderful questions. And thank you to everybody who donates to us. $2 a month on Patreon. It does help pay the bills. You can always donate on the Super Chat on our YouTube channel as well. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. Keep sharing the show out and tell people this is the place where the paranormal and weird happen live every Sunday night. All right, guys, have a great night. See you next Sunday.